all, appreciate you letting me show up nearly unsolicited at like 9 o'clock at night at your house when you'd never met me before. That was cool. You did that. And I learned in your office event the other day, and I don't know if this was part of that or not, but it was just like, say yes.
Yeah. That was like the basis of my thing was always say yes.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So, how have you been since I was at your house till 2 a.m.?
How have what?
How have you all been since I was at your house till 2 a.m.?
Well, we've gotten more rest since you left. That's been kind of nice.
That makes one of us.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I don't know how you've been, but I was able to go
I'm
to
the
bed at
night
normal
owl.
time. Yeah.
So I'm always up late, so that wasn't surprising. I was surprised you made it up as late as you did.
I was shocked. I was telling all my friends I stayed up past midnight. We were all impressed.
It's a good time.
Yeah.
Usually I'm in bed by like 8:30, so that's. Nice.
Whenever anybody comes over, he always goes to bed before they leave. Every single time.
Especially if I don't like somebody. I'm like, look, it's 8:30. I gotta go to bed.
No, he doesn't.
You were special.
Who's the kid on Christmas vacation when his dad, like Clark, wants him to help check the lights? He's like, gotta feed the cows, and water the dogs, got homework to do.
Yeah, that's me. When I want to get out of something, no, I gotta be up early tomorrow.
He did that last night with the Christmas tree.
I did.
He has narcolepsy, apparently. So if I ask him to do something...
Actually, she asked me to do her hair color, and I was like, oh, no, I got to be up early. That was a lie.
Is that real? Do you really get up early that much?
I'm just used to it. I used to do constructions. We used to get up at like 4 a.m. to beat traffic in Chicago. So.
And then we got to get all the kids up and out the door early for school. So.
Like I get up at 6.
Which is like a project with 5 kids.
Massive project, yeah.
Yeah, it's like herding, cows in the field. Like, you got to get them all together. Feed them, clothe them.
That was actually a thing for me when I was a kid. I don't know if we talked about this. So I would ride school with my mom, who was a teacher, who would have like, do you know what bus duty is?
Yeah.
So she would have bus duty in the morning sometimes.
That was you?
It was me.
I thought that was you. No. That's surround sound on here.
Mine comes out the other one.
Oh, God. Can you edit?
No editing here. This is
good thing
raw.
the microphone's up here.
This is raw.
It's gonna catch everything.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
So anyway, it'd be like December, January. It's 25 degrees outside. Mom's got to be at school at 6:30 for bus duty, and we get a call. Stuart, Wanda, your cows are out. So we go chase cows at 5 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, it was something I really had to live through as a kid.
I bet.
But anyway.
See, memories.
Yeah, right. Right.
See, my childhood was different. It would be like, oh, honey, somebody's breaking into our car. Go and chase them. Yeah, that's more, So you dealt with cows. We dealt with criminals.
Against my will, but yeah.
Same here.
Didn't have an option. Neither one of you.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Chicago, but your dad is from Eastern Kentucky?
Yeah. So my dad was born in Hazard, Kentucky.
Uh-huh.
And then came to Chicago. And that's where he met my mom. And, so I was born and raised right outside of Chicago. And then came here to Kentucky when I was 28. So about 10 years now.
2012, you said?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So why did your dad take the family to Chicago?
Well,
usually from Eastern Kentucky, that journey was to Detroit or somewhere in Ohio.
So actually, so many people from like Hazard, where they would go to Ohio for, to work in like the car manufacturers and stuff like that. There was a lot of that in Chicago as well. So,
Oscar Mayer Wiener.
Melrose Park had something that was, I know a bunch of my family ended up living in Melrose Park from Hazard. But yes, Ohio was a big one, but Chicago too.
So he worked in the car industry?
I think his dad, so that would be my grandpa. So his dad had moved for work. And then all the kids, my dad was one of 6 kids at that point.
It wasn't in car industry.
He worked for Oscar Mayer at some point, but I was referencing to how there was a lot of car jobs and stuff like that in Chicago. That's why a lot of people went.
Yeah, but all the normal people.
Seriously, butting in on my family talking. Wait until we talk about Bosnia.
Well, yeah, but
I'm going to tell you about your ancestors.
All the normal people went to auto industry in Ohio, and you guys went to work at a wiener plant in Chicago.
Well,
I'm just trying to,
Lucky you for wieners. That's eventually how you got me. So,
I was told they came from coal money, and they came from wiener money.
Coal money?
Yeah. Just like Eastern Kentucky coal mines. I was like, oh.
No, it's a thing.
It's a sense of humor.
Not with her family, though.
Yeah.
It was no coal money.
So I actually had a friend in college who drove the Wienermobile after he graduated for like 3 years.
The Oscar Mayer.
Yeah.
That's
It's a big
cool.
thing up there.
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays we have Uber. Back then we had Wienermobiles.
The Wienermobile,
I mean, it
yeah.
was just normal.
There's a joke in there somewhere.
There is. There is with everything he's saying,
it'll
too.
write itself.
So your dad moved to Chicago, worked in the car industry, and then worked for
My dad
Oscar
was
Mayer?
young. So he was young. He wasn't working.
He
was
followed
in
your dad.
school. So he followed
Your
his dad.
grandfather. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was my grandfather that moved everybody from Hazard to Chicago.
Okay.
My dad was in school at the time. Like, grammar school.
Did
So-
you visit Kentucky at all growing up?
Yeah, every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, every year.
Do you still have family in Hazard?
I do.
Yeah.
Yep. My cousin Cynthia, that I was actually named after, still
Nice.
lives in Hazard. Yeah. So I speak with her. But I got family in Ohio because, everybody kind of spreading out. So I got family in Ohio and still Eastern Kentucky. And for the most part, a lot of people stayed in Eastern Kentucky. My dad's siblings are all over the place now, but yeah, kind of a little bit everywhere.
That was a generational thing, right? My mom had 5 brothers and sisters too. She's one of 6, I believe.
Yep. That's how it was
Hold
back
on.
in the day.
I'll get crucified to get this wrong. Herb, Joe, Linda, Mom, Marcia, Joyce. Yeah, one of 6. Okay, I had that right. Anyway,
Yeah, my dad's siblings had
It's
very
like a test. He's
southern
making sure
names.
he's counting. Like, I got all.
Oh, we
oh
had-
no, they would watch this and I would hear about it. I
Right.
promise.
You missed. Oh, I know. Trust me. I understand family pressure. Yeah, I get it. I'm like, is it all 6? Yeah, I got it. Poor guy sweating over there.
Yeah.
Well, your dad was what? 1 of 7?
1 of 6.
1 of 6. Okay.
In like a 3-bedroom house, right?
Well, in Chicago, they had like a big 2-flat right in the city.
Okay,
Like,
so you really did come from coal money. Got it.
Nah, I
How
don't.
did they afford that house? Because that house was like $600,000 when Grandma passed, wasn't it?
I mean, it was expensive then,
Yeah.
but not when they bought it. I mean, think of it. My
Oh,
dad.
so
That's like
they
so
bought
many
it.
years ago.
They bought it in a real rough part of town.
What
That's
year?
How they got it cheap. Hell,
It
back
would have
in
been
the
like 60
70s.
years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe even more. 50s.
No, because my dad would be in his 60s right now if he
Yeah.
was still alive. So you're talking when he was younger. So
Probably
it's
bought it for
50
like
years ago,
$3
55
or
years ago.
something. Yeah.
No.
With a 25% interest rate.
Yeah, like 3 boxes of wieners. Got a whole house. I don't know if inflation, but I guess that's how it was.
Did you spike his coffee?
I'm telling you, there was something in this.
What did you do to him?
So,
It's coffee.
so part of the reason I wanted to have you all on is like we were talking about, you're not going to the event tonight, which I'm not either, but I can't say much. But I feel like you have such a unique story and have really done a lot as far as building your business, being successful here in Central Kentucky. And I feel like you fly under the radar. People, I think people need to know what you guys have been through and what you've built. I really do. So, like, for context, the Eastern Kentucky thing, but when I was at your house, you were telling me a little bit how you grew up, and I was like, I had to play it back in my mind a few times. You said you actually lived in a concentration camp in Bosnia.
Yeah, no, that was, it was like, I wasn't in the concentration camp. I was in the war when it started out. But when we came as refugees, we had to stay in those internment camps or those processing centers before they shipped you out. So it wasn't like, World War II.
Yeah, but still, it sounds horrible.
Well, to me it was childhood. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what I mean. Like,
So that you
know.
don't, when you think about your childhood, you don't feel trauma. You just think about your family and being a kid.
At
He
some
was
point
9.
you gotta,
He was 9 during that time.
you remember, like, you're little, but you remember. But at some point you gotta be like, I gotta get over it. You know what I mean? Like, you can't
let that stuff define you.
dwell on it. You gotta forgive yourself, forgive the whole thing, just move on. I mean, I'm 39 now. It's like, come on, 30 years. That's just time to grow up.
I think that's most people, though, regardless if they have a traumatic childhood or not. Like, those formative years shape our personalities and behavior so much, probably ways we don't even recognize. Like, I there's so many people I know where it's like, you still haven't graduated from high school.
Yeah.
And you're 40.
Yeah,
and
I
that's a
grew up
normal thing, I think.
Right. I grew up at 9. I grew up, like, I had to learn, everything, how to do paperwork, taxes, finances, translating, traveling, the whole thing, navigating the system. So, when I met her at 16, I was like, 26 or 36. I had
That's what I liked about him.
a lifetime
Older
of experience, I was like an old man. I'm like, hey, we ain't partying or drinking. We're going to be working. We're getting up early. We're going to be industrious, productive. But it's just at some point you just, it's you miss out on the childhood, but then you just got like, this is what it is, and you just got to do the best you can.
He's really big and an advocate in the sense of you cannot let your past traumas or things that have happened to you define you. Like, you cannot, like, sit in it and use it as a reason to not go where you want to go or be who you want to be.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. So, like, even for that kind of stuff, he spent a lot of time, talking, to me about it, and everyone around him really, like, come on, man. Like, we're full-blown adults. We got to get through that stuff. And he always tries to keep everything in a positive light and keep himself in a positive headspace when it comes to that stuff, which is really impressive.
That's what I mean about forgiving yourself, because people have something happen to them, and then, they'll ask others to forgive, or something happened traumatic, but you just got to forgive yourself. Whatever it was, and just move on. Put it in the past and move on. We all dwell too much on you've done something or something happened to you, and then you're wanting either acknowledgement or forgiveness, but at some point you ain't going to get it. Just move on.
It's healthiest for yourself to be okay and just move on, yeah.
And I got a lot of friends that are, alcoholics, therapy, drugs, the whole thing. And, and they just can't get over it. They just can't, move on, forgive themselves. It's traumatic, and it is. I'm not dismissing it, but, you sort of have to overcome. And
you keep saying forgive yourself. Did you at some point, or do they feel some kind of responsibility for the situation they were in?
Survivor's guilt.
Survivor's guilt.
Right. Like, why did I live and a lot of my friends died, so.
Yeah. I think, sorry, I know it's got serious quick.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
But I agree with the spirit of what you're saying, that it's important for us to move on and live the life according to our intention, not according to just being victim of circumstance, right? But I also think that whether we know it or not, we have a narrative that we construct or is constructed through events that we live with that shape so much of our identity, right? And I think if you don't process everything and figure out how to integrate everything, you just sort of keep that poison inside you, right? And it's still kind of there making you sick. So it's like...
But do you think we sometimes overprocess everything? Like, I feel like the way we are now, we overthink and overprocess.
I don't mean chew on it and chew on it and chew on it. Just put everything in the proper context.
Yeah, but we overanalyze everything now. Like, I could sit here and overanalyze why, my childhood best friend wanted to kill me and go to war and the whole thing. Like that was my childhood, but then it's like now I'm sitting on it, dwelling, overprocessing, overthinking. At some point, it's just like, you know what? It is what it is. Maybe he said things he didn't mean. Maybe things happened that, just, the events unfolded and happened, and it just so happened. And whether he wanted it, we wanted it. But it's like, it's one of those things I always see people. It's just someone said or did something, or something happened, and then we sit on it, we dwell on it, we talk about it.
Yeah, you don't want to let it eat you.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
Well, and actually, we agree, actually, is like process it to the extent that you've dealt with it, and it's no longer eating you, right? If that makes sense.
Right.
Whereas if you just try to bury it and compartmentalize it, initially, it's like it's always kind of there eating you.
And it'll always be there. It'll always be that event, that traumatic event that happened. But if you sit on it and you want an answer on what it was and why you and not somebody else, you can't, and that's always you make that bigger than it should be.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah, but no matter what it is that has happened to you or going through or will go through, it depends on your perspective too, on how you handle things. Like there's a positive and a bright side to absolutely everything. I mean, he looks at me all the time and it's like, I'm thankful for the war getting me out of the country. I never would have found you. He tells me that all the time. He's like, I'm so thankful that my life ended up the way that it did, because that's what brought me to America. That's what led me to you and whatnot. So
but it took years.
But this is what I mean by a narrative and context, and seeing the thread that runs through the different events and how you ended up where you are.
Yeah.
You made the point to him better than I could have.
It's always.
She's been with me so long. She knows how.
She knows your
talk
language.
To me like I'm 3.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. To explain things.
So I'm sorry. Got lost of a train of thought there for a second.
You'll do that with this one.
Yep, my fault.
So, and the reason why I think it's important is because I think what you all have done is awesome. And I do think that your family being from Eastern Kentucky and you growing up with the background that you did has contributed to your ethics, your values, your personality, because life's been real for you guys, right? This is not theoretical people screaming at each other on the internet. It's not academic, right? Your values and your ethics have been shaped by your experiences.
Yeah, by experiences, and then what we preach, we do, and it's one of those things. It's really easy to get dark and negative, and even when we were escaping the war, there were people taking advantage of us financially and everything else, and it's super unethical. But then you can't let that shape you to be the next unethical person, and it's almost like you almost have to break that cycle.
Well, you do, but you go one direction or you go the other direction.
Right. Absolutely.
Right? There's no middle ground there. No, it's like, how am I going to respond to this? I'm either going to give into it or I'm going to try to defy it and break that cycle, right?
Right. And that's the thing. It's like you can either let it eat you and, go into that abyss, or you can stay above it. And it's, it's work. It's hard not to get negative and jaded on people that, take advantage of you or, do things that are shady and unethical, but you have to stay above it. So that's,
So can you piece together the timeline for me and I'm trying to get from the war to internment to Chicago.
Yeah, so, long story, but basically it was just Yugoslavia's breaking up, all the states wanted to go independent, and, I guess the federal government or the, main government wanted to keep everybody together, so it was the army coming after each state, started with Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia, and went all the way down to Kosovo and all that. But so when the war broke out, we owned a business. My dad did, and just things are shutting down. Supplies aren't coming in, and business rough. So he went to Germany ahead of us to sort of secure supplies and money and contracts. And it was only supposed to be a 2-week trip, and he was supposed to come back.
What was the business?
It was like a grocery store, like something like a Walgreens,
cool.
Something like that. Like nothing big, but keep in mind this is communism. So
right.
Private business ownership was a little frowned upon, and him being one of the head communists for the city somehow opened up a pretty big business that, did well. But yeah, so he just, left for Germany, left us behind, and there was never a plan to leave the country. There was never, we're going to stay there and fight and just, survive. And as soon as he left, the war really broke out. The whole country got shut down, all transportation, everything. Like nobody could come in or out. And
was there a strong national identity for you there as a kid? Did you feel that?
So there really wasn't. And I remember as a kid in school, one of my friends going, he's like, what are you? And I was like, well, I said, Yugoslavian, like, what am I? And then he's like, no, are you are you Bosnian? Are you Serb? Are you Croat? I'm like, well, I don't know. I said, so I went home. I'm like, Dad, what am I? I was like, Yugoslavia. And I was like, okay. So, nowadays you got kids like, what are you? American or Kentuckian or whatnot. And you go home and you're like, I'm an American, but there wasn't that national pride identity, at least for me, but there was a lot of it around us, but yeah, it was crazy. My dad always hung on to, we're Yugoslavian, we're strictly pro-Yugoslavian. We don't want the government. We don't want war. We don't want all that. But, so we just followed him to Germany. We had to bribe our way out. So it was, we had to pay a lot of money to get out. You had to get special permitting to get past military checkpoints, So we forged papers. We paid something like, back then, maybe like $20,000 to just go through one checkpoint just to bribe your way in. And that's the thing is being a refugee and escaping, takes a lot of money. And, it's not just crossing a border. It's, we have to go through, I'm trying to remember, we have to go almost south towards Greece to get to Germany, which is north. So we went down south through Montenegro. We went through Serbia. We went through Austria, pretty much made a big circle to get up to Germany. Had to go on, they had refugee trains, refugee stations and all that. But we were afraid to get on those because, World War II, trains with refugees and all that. So we kind of stayed under the radar and all that. And then, we got to Germany, and then we were in these border processing centers where all the refugees just stayed in these, you couldn't go in or out. You were in these military barracks, barbed wire armed guards, and kind of, hey, we're processing you here. So we stayed there for about, I think like 2-3 weeks. Bunk beds, bunch of people from Africa, Had to get a bag of bread. Had to stand the bread lines and stuff like that. So, yeah.
So you said you were talking about your house. I was talking about my house the other day, and you said there were like 6 of you in a 1,100 square foot house. You were talking about on your patio. He said about the size of this patio.
Yeah. No, there was.
Was that when you were interned, or was that?
So how you grew up? It took us 2 weeks, which should be maybe a 1-day trip. It took us about 2 weeks to go from the war zone up to Germany. So we had to stay at friends' houses and stay at neighbors, families' houses in other countries wherever we could find. So some of the families took in, I think there was like 23 or 28 people in a little studio. You're talking about a living room, small kitchen, and 1 bathroom. And I mean, we slept in hallways on top of each other. But everybody was just trying to get someplace safe, someplace stable. So we just, all crashed there one night. And yeah, that was quite a bit of us. And after we got out of there, Germany found us a hotel room for my family and I, which was 4. So we stayed there for a minute till they gave us work visas, and that was it.
So straight from Germany to Chicago.
Yeah, and that was another funny story. We weren't planning on going to Chicago. We wanted to stay in Germany because we already had, my parents had jobs and everything else, and Germany wouldn't guarantee us citizenship, so it was either you apply and the risk of getting denied, you have to go back to Bosnia. But America was still taking refugees, and since we still had refugee status in Germany, they would take us. And we just had to pay the airfare ticket, and I think the paperwork was like $300. We had applied to Canada, Australia before that because we had family in Canada, and Canada wanted something like $1,200, and Australia wanted like $2,000. So because my dad was so cheap, which God bless him, he picked Chicago because we had family in Chicago, and you had to have a guarantor, somebody to guarantee.
So you came to Chicago instead of Canada because of $700?
$700. Yep. And I tell him this all the time. Like, that was the best thing. It's like when we first landed, it's like, I wish I would have paid to go to Canada. I was like, no. It's like the greatest story because we were dead set. We had applied, and I remembered because I had to go to school get my transcripts, and they're like, well, where are you going? I said, we're going to Canada, because Australia was out because like $2,000. Tickets were too much. It was way too far. So, and we're supposed to go to Canada. And then like a week later, I was like, no, we're going to Chicago. And they're like, well, what happened? I'm like, I said, I don't know. Dad said it was too expensive for Canada. So $700.
$20,000 to get you out of Yugoslavia, but
$700 is where I draw the line. And for the record, he criticized my mom for paying those bribes. So. Because I remember we showed up, we survived this, we had to sleep on trains, outside in train stations and cars, buses, random homes. And, we paid everyone and anyone had a car and everything. And then we finally get there and, I'm excited to see my dad. And he's like, you shouldn't have paid $20,000. You could have gotten 10. I'm like, but that's my dad. That's, So, but it worked out.
So 95, 96, you went to Chicago?
So 97 I came.
97
to Chicago, yeah. And I went to Germany in 92. So
Yeah, you were there from 92 to 97, about 5 years.
About 5 years.
So you said you were interned for a couple weeks and then you had hotel rooms and they had jobs, but you were there for 4 years.
Yes. So what happened is, once they process you in the center, get your paperwork and everything else and make sure that, you're not a threat and you had registered and all that, they find you housing in Germany at least. They, sort of ship you pretty much kind of like we're doing here where we send migrants to, put them on buses and send them everywhere. So they found a hotel room for us to stay and, and after that it was like apply, get a job, apply for a citizenship, get a job. And we had work visas or work permits and, we could do that. We couldn't own real estate or buy anything, but, we could rent and, work. And, my parents worked and I worked on farms. And
what did they do?
So my dad was, he was a plumber in Germany. He was really good with plumbing. And my mom, and see, my parents were always pretty cool. My mom would do the second shift, and she would do, she was a cleaning lady, hotels and all. And before that, she was an accountant. So it was, you come to, Germany and your paperwork don't count for nothing.
Yeah.
So she was cleaning hotels and all, but it was kind of, it worked out because he would watch the kids in the afternoons when she worked. And, when we came to America, he would work the third shift. So they could always work while one of them would watch the kids.
She was a cleaning lady in Chicago?
And
she
Germany.
Started, yeah.
Well, she was in Germany, too.
You said Germany
and Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And Chicago.
Yeah.
And he was also a plumber in Germany and Chicago?
Yeah, he started that, and then he became a maintenance technician or maintenance, what do you call it, maintenance engineer, whatever, maintenance guy, maintenance tech.
Yeah, maintenance of buildings.
He does
and stuff like
HVAC
that.
now, so he's one of those guys that like a MacGyver. He can do everything.
Yeah.
Call him for anything, he'll do it.
So you were in middle school, early high school when you met?
High school.
Yeah, high school. I was, a junior?
I don't even know. That's still to be determined. What grade he was in. He was 16.
Off the record, I didn't finish a few grades between the war. I didn't finish my third grade. They're going to take my high school diploma.
The transcripts were all over the place with the moves and everything else. And they were putting him in grades. And then with his, in Germany, he didn't speak German. So he's put into certain levels. He gets here. He doesn't speak English. He's getting put into certain levels. And then his schooling was so advanced, and then they'd skip him levels. It was
so you
the
just took
biggest mess.
tests and capped in wherever they thought you'd fit?
Yeah, I would have to, they would look at
exactly.
age, and I would test in. But, you skip a few months of schooling because of the war, things like that, and traveling and relocating. And, I never finished third grade or eighth grade. So.
And that's how we met, because I am a year younger than him, but he was placed into my English class because his English wasn't 100% yet. And
it was bad.
And it wasn't that bad. And that was how we met. He was in my English class. I was a sophomore. He was technically a junior. And he was in my English.
My counselor places me in sophomore English, and she's like, you should really be in junior with your peers and all that. And I was like, I saw her. I was like, nope. I said, I like where I'm at. I had a crush on her. I was like, she's like, well, why don't you finish this semester and we move you out? I was like, okay, but I said, I really need my sophomore English. My English is still bad.
His English was not bad. He had plenty of skills.
So you had already gotten to know her at that point, or you just came in first day of class?
So it was really odd because I transferred to that school. I went to 4 different high schools, in 4 years. And then I transferred to her school, and where they put my locker was right there by kind of where the students get dropped off that are shown late to class. And, if you know Cindy, she's always late. And
Not that late. Go.
And anyway, she, I just, my locker was there, and I would have to go get my stuff from the locker every morning, and she would show up an hour late because she wanted to do gym. And she'd show up with her brother. She'd get dropped off, and I'd see her
Wait, to
there.
skip gym or just to gym first period?
It was gym first period and skip it.
Got it. Yeah.
She joined the bowling league to get out of it, by the way.
I was not going. I was
the
not
record.
going to start my morning by
Be
like
sweaty
running
all day?
laps.
Yeah.
No,
Ruined her hair and makeup.
we had a swimming pool at our high school. We had to do swim class. Can you
Yeah.
imagine first period going into a cold no, I was not going to do that. No.
No, so that was the first time I laid my eyes on her, was her coming in.
Swim class.
Well, no, skipping first
it.
class. She was skipping first class, and
I
I
would
was by
have
my
sealed the
locker.
deal pretty quick if that was the case.
Yeah.
If he was in my swim
If I was
class.
in her swimming class, yeah. Would have been a different story to tell the kids.
Yeah.
So, but no, I saw her there, and I was just, really checking around, and I'd have to go to my locker every day, and some days she'd go to the gym, and I wouldn't see her, but most days she'd, ditch gym, and
Got to go get your English book.
yeah, I was like, I don't even know when I went down there. For half the time, I had nothing in my locker, but I had to go down there because I knew the time she was coming in. I was totally, crushing on her, and then I just so happened to be in her sophomore English. I got transferred again from my ESL, which is, learning English, and the counselor was like, we should move you to junior English. Like, nope, I need sophomore. I said, I'm terrible at this. So, but yeah, and then we just bumped into each other in class, and
So how many months went by before the window story?
That was the first day we ever talked.
Oh, it was right. But how long did it take for him to talk to you is my question.
So that window story was like on a Tuesday.
well, it took about a couple of months. He's talking about how long we were.
Oh, I didn't. Okay,
Crossing
I
each
didn't
other.
know he existed to the window
Yeah,
day.
right. No, he had to work up to it. Yeah, found the right moment.
Apparently, yeah, he knew who
Actually,
I was. I didn't
I
know.
was smooth because this was October we started dating, so that would be we started school I think end of August.
September, yeah.
Yeah, beginning of September. So about a month and a half, maybe 2 months. Where I was just crushing on her, and she just never.
And
saw
she was
me.
like, "I didn't who."
She's like too big.
Yeah.
Too big of a shot. She's
Right.
like, I don't like this guy with
like
his
at school, I was just like
khaki
very.
pants and gym shoes. He doesn't even know how to
Yeah.
dress.
Right.
So, but
I was very much, and I still am the type of person. I just stay in my lane. I do my own thing. Like
well, I was trying to do a lot of things to get her attention, which didn't work. I started hanging.
I'm
out
kind
with,
of oblivious because I just keep like in my own lane. So.
I started hanging out with a lot of her friends, like the guy friends that didn't really have a personality, but I started hanging out with them, just get closer to her, and then I also took one of her friends to homecoming because I couldn't get close to her, and she never hung out with anybody, so everybody else hung out, and I took one of her friends to homecoming, and I saw.
So this
her
is
there.
this is a long game. It sounds a little devious, if I'm being honest.
So this is before cell phones and Snapchat and all. This was like, you couldn't just, hey, let me friend request you on Facebook. You had to do
Work
this in
for it.
person. You had to write handwritten notes. We're talking about 90s. This is before internet. This is AOL
Yeah.
dial-up.
When we started talking, our text messages were
Notes.
in
Oh,
school,
yeah.
right?
You understand that you're not that much older than me, right?
I don't know, but it sounds like when I tell my kids this, they're like, what do you mean you couldn't just friend request them? I was like, no, you don't, no, that's not how it
Oh,
works.
your colorized joke killed me the
Yeah.
other day.
I'm telling you, like you have to. My kid will ask me, like, "What did you guys do without internet when you were in the car driving?" I'm like, "We stared at the grass. What are you gonna do?" That was
Gosh.
entertainment.
And even that is like more of a recent thing, being able to have internet, like when
Yeah.
you're driving. But
Yeah.
But yeah, it took a little while, and then I just remember.
internet came out while we were dating.
Yeah.
We got a cell phone years after we started dating.
No, I know.
So let's not skip over the window story when you had your big moment.
Yeah, so finally, after about a month, 2 months of me just trying to do things, and I remember, we were doing these introductions in class, and I really, everybody had to say their name and repeat the other student's name, and I couldn't remember anybody else's but hers. I'm like, I etched it in my brain, so when it was my turn, I yelled her name, and she turned around, looked in the back, almost gave me an attitude, like, why is he yelling my name? Give me this dirty look, and I'm like, sup, And, but... So it happens she went to gym that one morning out of never going there, and they sat us because of our names. I was almost in the last, and she was kind of 3 seats in front of me, and she comes in, and
I went to gym and I was warm because
Cindy
they made
being
me
Cindy,
do stuff.
she was actually doing exercise and doing gym, and she comes out, she's like, "I am hot," opens the window. This is end of October, 27. You know, it's cold in Chicago. And I'm sitting there, I was like, no, I said, it's cold. So I closed the window, you know. And she looks at me like, oh, no, you did not tell me what to do. She's like, excuse me? And she opens it. And so now we're going back and forth. And, you know, I was a little irritated because it was freezing. Everybody else was siding with me, but nobody wanted to stand up. You know, nobody was going to fight her. She's 5'2". And, you know, so, and in my mind, I think I won that argument, but I do remember
The window
freezing.
stayed open the whole time. But yes, baby.
Yeah, I feel like I won that argument, but I do remember being cold the next hour, so just gonna go ahead with that one. But yeah, right after that, I think it was that same day, or the next day, her girlfriend, she found the phone number, my home number, on her teacher's desk calendar, so she called the house. And back in those days, you had to call the parents, you know, the main line.
You talked to Dad, Cynthia.
Well, her girlfriend called
Who are
my
you?
dad.
So my girlfriend, actually, I had my friend, her name was Rochelle, and I had her call him. I'm like, here, call him, see what's up with him.
Whoa.
Because I wasn't going to call him, and he was obviously taking too long to call me. So I had my friend do
She
it.
probably
I'm like,
wanted
you
a
do.
round 2 of window arguing. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe.
I mean, I
her
won.
friend
It
calls
felt
and
good.
my dad speaks no English. This is fresh off the boat, you know, 2 years in America, and I'm like the only one in the family speaking English. And he's like, hey, Debbie's calling you. So I was like, oh, okay. And then I knew a Debbie from work. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. I used to work at the grocery store. I was like, oh, so I'm like, oh, hey, Debbie. And she's like, no, this is Rochelle. And then I was like, what? And I was really confused. I'm like, what's going on? And the next day, she writes me this note. She's like, well, hey, you know, there's this play in school. If you really want to hang out, you know, come and see me at
Meet
the
me
play.
there.
Yeah. It's like a cute little note. And, you know, then
Technically, I asked him out.
she did. After 2 months of me trying to talk to her. And
Through Rochelle.
Well, Rochelle called. That really didn't get anywhere. So the next day, I wrote a letter, and I basically said to him, I'm like, hey, I'm going to this play tonight. I'm like, if you want to, you know.
after 2 months of
Check boxes, yes or no.
following her
Pretty
around,
much.
talking to her, chasing her
And
to
I'm
the
like-
lunchroom, to the school, to the homecoming. Every time I saw her, I was like, oh, let's go hang out with those friends over there. But for 2 months, you know, so finally she got the courage to ask me out.
I think I finally got the hint.
I think
But
so.
so it was one of those, if you want to hang out, like, come meet me at the play. And that's all I said. And I'm like, if he, you know, from there, like, if he's interested and he wants to make the effort, he'll figure it out, right? Like, he'll get there, or I'll see him there. And
The word play,
he didn't know
our
in his
language
English
is-
vocabulary.
is game.
He
and
didn't
so
know
I'm
what the
looking
heck I was talking about.
for football plays, basketball plays, soccer plays, because, you know, instead of the game, for us it's plays. Like, man, there's no basketball games. There's nothing going on today. And then I was just standing in the hallway trying to figure out what is a play. Like, I thought it was a sport. I even looked at tennis and everything else. I'm like, there's no play going on today. Luckily there wasn't. Otherwise it would have been a football game. And there was a school play. And I'm like, man, these Americans call this play. I'm like, shouldn't this be something? But anyway, so I went to the play. It was like a vampire school play. And there she was with her girlfriend. And we just hit it off. And she
what
carded
happened?
me.
What happened in that play?
She said, I need to see your driver's license first thing.
Okay, well, you missed the other part, but the driver's license I had to. My dad had a rule. I was not allowed to date boys that were more than 2 years older than me. So, and I'm like right off the bat, I'm like, I'm not going to waste my time with this guy. He looks so much older. I'm like, if
She needed
he's,
my pre-qualification.
yeah, it was basically like getting him pre-qualified to date me, right? Like we do in, you know, the real estate world. Before I was going to go any further, you know, investing my time.
Yeah, waste your time. Yeah.
Right,
Do you
just-
see how hard we had to work back then to get a date with a girl? Nowadays, like these kids with Tinder, just, you know, swipe left and right, or, you know, come on.
But honestly, that was much better
It was. It's very
because
romantic.
it's turned. Well, now it's turned people into commodities, right?
It has, yeah.
Definitely.
And
Absolutely.
everyone's disposable, and it's like everyone's depressed.
And you're objectified.
You're totally
just-
objectified.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
It's
'cause-
horrible.
Yeah, our story was cute because then she's like, oh, she's like, you're not 16. I need to see your driver's. I'm like, no.
He told me he was 16. I'm like, he's lying.
Yeah, but
Because he looked so much older.
the immigration process and every hop that you took, your driver's license could have said anything.
I could have
It
forged
could
that.
have, but you gotta
I could be
understand.
49 for all you know.
He was 6 foot tall. He looked like he was 25.
Yeah.
He was really built, like just, I mean, big old shoulders and everything else. He looked 25. Now, I was 15 at the time, but I always have looked younger. I probably looked like I was, what? God, I don't want to say 13, 14 because that almost sounds creepy. But, I mean, I look on the young side. He always looked older. So it's like, dude, there's no way I can take you home to my parents. They're not going to believe me that you're 16.
Yeah, she's
so,
like, let me see the driver's license.
And the first thing my parents did when they met him was they carded him. So, I mean, I was 100% right just getting that out of the way because I knew it was a big deal for my dad.
You know, being a foreigner, you're like, oh, this must be an American thing. Like, you know, get ID'd when you go to see an American. Like, let me see your driver's license.
Yeah, they did not believe. They thought I was lying.
The first time meeting her mom,
age.
she's like, I need to see your driver's license.
Was your mom from Chicago?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
She was born there too, right?
Yep.
Yeah, born and raised.
Yep.
So talk to me about the development of your relationship because I would imagine it was like you were trying to figure out what you had in common, and that might have been hard with how she was raised and how you were raised.
Well, this is, I mean, for us,
We have nothing in common.
We have nothing in common really, except the same goals and the same values.
Such polar opposites. Like we don't have.
Yeah, we're so opposite.
Not even movies and shows we watch. Nothing.
Nothing.
I mean, there's not.
But for us, like we just always had this like really strong connection. We're like magnets. We could be with each other 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like we never ever feel like, oh, I need space, or you know, like, oh gosh, never. Like neither one of us. But when we went to that play that day, and then the next day, from there it basically took off. That was it, you know. So we went to the play. We got kicked out for talking. They made us leave. We had to go home.
Yeah, we didn't know how to shut up. Even now, it's like we could talk.
We talk 24/7. We never run out of things that we could talk to each other
even
about.
after 23 years, we could talk.
I love it.
I mean, we never run out of things to talk, and we both like talking.
But from that day, and that was like a Tuesday, and then the next day we were already going out after school. By the end of the week, you were picking me up in the morning before school, taking me home after. We were inseparable with like almost immediately. And then we were officially dating by the end of that week, so within a few days. By that following Monday, 4 days, we were officially dating. And then like 6 days later, we're already saying I love you. And then that following week, which would have put us like 10 days after we first really talked, we picked out our wedding day. We said, we're getting married.
Now, I was probably saying I love you for those 2 months I was chasing her, but she never heard me, so.
But we even picked out our wedding day.
With how you hopped around, she was your first real girlfriend.
No, I've had a few girlfriends. I just never.
Not a real
girlfriend, but she would be the real. She'd probably be the first one that I really wanted to have a girlfriend. Like, you know, girls before that, it was just. Not that I wasn't into girls. It wasn't. It was sort of, I don't know what the right term is, like almost prearranged or expected to date a Bosnian girl or you know date this Bosnian family and all that. So this one was like, this is what I wanted and the girl I wanted. So this was, I mean, I've dated before her a little bit at 15, 16, but because I did live in the city, Chicago, before I moved to the suburbs by her, you know, for a year. So. And that was fun.
I guess I didn't understand how long you were in Chicago first.
Yeah, so I was in Chicago.
Like 2 years.
So we got there in 97, yeah. So I was in the actual city, north side, for about, I think it was about a year, maybe a little over a year. And then we moved to the suburbs, and we moved in the suburbs twice. And I just happened to be in her school district. I wasn't in the same town and all that. But, yeah, so, you know, she was probably the first and only girl I really... Well, the girl that, you know, I went to homecoming with, we dated for a little bit, but that's because, you know, she was friends with her.
I mean, for both of us, obviously. I mean, we were so young when we got together that this has been, you know, one and only. But, yeah, like, I mean, we legit planned our wedding day within the first 10 days. We sat on a computer, pulled up a calendar, and said what day we're going to get married. And we pulled up 2007 because it was like 7.5 years ago. I wanted a June wedding.
She wanted to make sure that 8 years, you know, it would work out. She's like, I got to play it slow.
Yeah, we planned it. We're like, we picked out our wedding date, literally, and that was the day we got married, June 30th of 2007. So, I mean...
And you told your mom and dad when you picked out your wedding date 8 years in the future.
Yeah, like my grandma, who's now almost 95, she'll tell you. She's like, she always tells me, every time she sees me, I'll never forget the day you walked in here and told me you met this boy and you were going to marry him. So, yeah. So it is cute. I mean, we started that way, and that's just how it's been ever since. And anybody who's known us long term, they just know this about us. Like, I mean, he is my best friend. You know, it's a little cliche to say that, but he is legit my best friend. So
I agree with her. I am awesome.
yeah, I'm sure he does.
I do.
It's interesting to me that you talk about how you're opposites, but you don't fight, or you do fight, but
we do fight.
you prioritize the relationship.
Oh, we fight on everything.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we fought about the window.
Yeah, we fought about the wind. I mean, we started dating over a fight.
Right.
When you think about
I mean, he's full of jokes. He's always got something to say. He's always got an opinion. I'm more like literal, black and white, more factual, right? He purposely loves to rile me up.
It's easy.
It's a hobby for him.
Yeah, I get that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And you know, and I see this in my kids too, and my son is like her, black and white, and it's
Literal.
and you know, if you say, you know, this, it means this, and you can't deviate from it. And where my daughter, my middle child, she just, everything's a prank to her, so
Everything's fun
she'll
to
get
poke the bear.
she'll get to her brother in 2 seconds, and I can do that to her too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
that's why we're so opposite, like, to where I can, you know, get under her skin. You know, she's very straight and narrow, black and white. You know, if we say we're doing this, we're doing it. We can't deviate from the plan. Like, that's the plan. We laid it out. So,
I have one of those too.
no, I'm sure. You
Yeah.
know, we all need one of those.
Yeah, I mean, like, one of you got to be that way. I mean, and if you both are that way, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. That would be way too much headbutting.
No, but that's what's kind of nice about not having anything in common. You know, I can see her perspective with things, and I've learned a lot about that. Where, you know, the black and white, like, okay, if you say, you know, do this,
It's easier for you to see her perspective than it is for her to see your perspective.
Yeah. And things like when she says, you know, hey, the kids, you know, dinner's at 6, showered by 7, bed by 8. You know, and the way we grew up, it was like all that's optional. You know, and then she's like, well, this the plan. We're
More
sticking to the plan. You know,
structured,
it's more structured, and I kind of like that. You know, it's one of those things where, okay, we're doing.
You know what to expect. That's why,
right.
you know. But when you've got a large family, too, you know, for us, we've got our 3 kids and then our niece and nephew that live with us. But it's like when you have all these people, like, you have to have a little bit of, you know, some like routine, some schedule. Like when it was just 1 kid, 2 kids, we were a little bit more like, you know, free for all, because you could be easily. But at a certain point, you have to be a lot more scheduled, and everybody kind of needs to know what their place is and how they contribute and what's expected of them, because, you know, I'm one person. I can't manage all these kids. So I think a lot of the rigidness has actually become more from getting older, because it needs to be. It needs to be to function, you know, without losing your mind.
She's always been a planner. This is nothing getting older.
I'm a chick.
I find that contradictory with you not liking to be early.
Okay, so I'm very busy. My schedule's always very busy. And it's always about...
She's very busy, very successful real estate agent, very busy. She's got a lot going on.
I do have a lot going on.
She does.
I'm always running.
She runs, I mean, I don't want to tell anybody this, but she runs my business for me too. So I just, you know.
We're involved in everything, and I know I'm getting messages and stuff right now for your stuff.
So yeah.
But it's one of those, like, I have so many things that I could check off my box for that day, right? Like, just check, like, whether it's errands, whether it's things that need to be done, whether it's paperwork that needs to be done, and this and that. And like, I try to plan everything so tightly and get so much done during my day, right? And so if I'm 20 minutes early to something, 30
You're
minutes,
wasting
I'm like,
time.
man, I could have gotten this done. So it's not for any other reason except for that, where I'm like, I wasted an opportunity to get something off my list for the day.
Makes sense.
So I'm trying to schedule all my stuff tight.
We're both the kind of people that will cram everything in 1 or 2 days, and even if it's like a 12, 15-hour day,
then to have an easier
do 5
day.
like, you know, 3-hour days
Yeah.
or something. You know what I mean? Like we'll cram everything in one, and then, you know, we're always rushing and running behind, but we get it done. It's just, you know, we showed up to a meeting yesterday 30 minutes early. I think because we finished one up early. And
I just was really ahead of schedule, and I was like, man, I could have gotten something else done. But I sat in the car doing paperwork and whatnot while we were waiting. It was fine, but it's one of those where I'm just trying to get stuff off the list.
Well, and it's just like if you feel like if you're ahead of the game and then you get thrown a curveball, you can kind of deal. But if you're already kind of behind, it just kind of snowballs, right?
Yeah.
I mean, basically what we do for a living with everything that we're involved with, we're problem solvers, right? So being thrown curveballs is not something that scares me or worries me or whatever. I'm used to that. That is like the job. So I'm not worried about, okay, if I show up early in case somebody else nah, like everything else we can make happen. Nothing is that big of a deal.
So you, Chicago 97, you were in Chicago till you got married in 07. And then I understand you moved here in 2012. What did you do from 2007 to 2012, respectively?
Worked. Worked.
We never had a day off. She had her own hair salon up there. She was a licensed hairstylist, and I did concrete cutting, and we just worked 6 days a week.
That's all
70, 80 hours. We never took a day. Sundays we usually head off, but night work, day work, no hobbies.
A lot
just
of
work.
people have no idea the sacrifice and like the background that we have, and because we have been together for so long and we started our relationship so young, we started our life young, and we had goals, and we knew that we were going to be successful, and that we weren't quite sure how or what we were going to do. All we knew is that the more we worked, the better chance we had of getting there. So, I mean, we were 18 and we were both full force, 1, 2, 3 jobs. We bought first place at 18, first house at 18, second house at 19, third house at 21, and then fourth house at 22. Like, we were buying houses, like flipping, like starting all this young, and we were working double jobs and everything else, getting approved for loans, just the two of us. So like we were just getting into everything.
Literally, if I wrote a book, it was just work.
Work.
If we had free time, it was do side work.
Yeah.
It was nothing else.
So you told me the story of you getting involved in concrete cutting because of your dad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was another funny story. So
yeah, so we were out one weekend, and he had a gold Camaro. That was his signature, by the way.
Yeah.
So he had a gold Camaro. Had no
Worked for that,
idea
too.
that there was a ticket that he. It didn't get. It's a long story. I won't go into it. But
No. There's time.
yeah,
it's just a ticket.
I had gotten a speeding ticket, and I was summoned to court. And back in those days, if you went to court, a lot of times they dismissed it. It was a $50 ticket, and I went to court to dismiss it because I couldn't afford it. I was 16, and they didn't call my name. And I asked the judge, like, well, you got to call the state. You're not on the docket, blah blah. I said I never followed up, and they
I'm not in the docket. I'm good.
I just left, and they put a bench warrant out for me for missing this, even though I was there. And they didn't mail nothing, say nothing. And I'm going out on a date with her. We're heading downtown and dressed up and all, and I get pulled over for speeding, of course. And they're like, there's a warrant out for your arrest. And I was like, for what? They're like, we don't know.
Handcuffed him, took him to jail.
Called 2 cars. They were like, look, we don't want any violence. I'm like, for what? I don't know what I did.
Because he was always so big. Everybody was always afraid
the cops,
of him.
they had like 2, 3 cop cars. They're freaking out. Because back in those days, the system didn't tell them what it was. They said it was a warrant.
Yeah.
And took me to the station. They, handcuffed to a, bench and all this. And finally comes back, missed court date. The cop's like, oh, God, okay. So her dad bailed me out.
Well, you had called your dad.
Well, I called, yeah, correct. I called my dad, and he hung up.
Hung up on
Classic,
him.
my dad.
So there was no one else for him to call. Who was he gonna call? His dad was basically figured out, hung up on
The
him.
cop felt bad. He's like, well, that was your one phone call. It's like, but you can call somebody else. So
I'm like, call my dad, call my dad.
I called my dad, and I was like, oh, God. So, all right, I'm dating this American girl. I got to call her dad. And he's just laughing. He's like, all right, let me get my shoes and keys. And comes, picks me up, pays the bond. I think he paid the towing fees in the car and all. Then
They towed his car because I was still 15. I couldn't drive his car.
Right.
So
yeah, so that's so he paid all, and he goes like, I was like, it's like you're just gonna work it off working for me. That it wasn't, hey, pay me back or nothing. It's like, no, he's like, you're gonna work it off this Saturday. You come and work for me, and I said, whatever, And then, but I didn't know what her family did. The only thing I knew was something with diamonds, because I always saw diamonds, diamond cut, diamond, and. My parents like, what do they do for a living? I was like, I think it's jewelry. That's what I told my mom. I said, I think they cut diamonds and sell diamonds. I'm like, and she's like, oh, that sounds nice. I was like, yeah. So I showed up dressed, to cut jewelry and put jewelry on display. And I'm at this warehouse with all these big tools. Like, oh no, we're cutting concrete. With what? Diamonds. I was like, oh. Learned my lesson real quick.
My dad was a concrete cutter, and that's what he did, and started a business and everything up in Chicago. So that was his background, and that's kind of what started.
How did he learn that?
He, I mean, really, just getting a job with somebody that he knew was,
So he was
through a neighbor, through Hank.
Yeah, he was kind of bouncing around, Chicago, just job to job. He was doing
his early
deliveries, vending
20s.
machine deliveries, all, as a young man. And then one of the neighbors, they were hiring at, so this was back in the 70s when there was only one company in half the country doing the concrete cutting because it was so expensive. And they said they were looking for general laborers to join, learn the trade. And he applied and got in. And Hank was the guy that trained him. And, he learned the trade and just went on his own, I think it was 89.
It's concrete demolition, to put it simply, right? Because a lot of people are like, what is it? What do they do? It's concrete demolition. It's like a very specialized type of demolition where they're saw cutting, using blades. Like it's not, explosives or nothing, but
No, it's very select. It's
very select.
I mean, I think there's only 2 companies in Lexington, maybe 3 that do this, and it's a very highly specialized job.
Yeah.
So you worked for her dad from
That's how he learned it.
07?
Yeah, from 07. So,
No, not before we got married.
well, you know what? You're right. So my first time working for him when I was 16, and it was just breaking, cutting, because I was still in high school. So then I would just come in on the weekends and
Side
earn
job.
extra money, and usually on Saturdays just breaking, cutting, doing things like that. And then when I turned 18, I was in college, and then I would do summer by her dad, where I'd work the summer and then go to school. And then after a while, I dropped out of school because I finished my 2 years and I wasn't going to go any farther. And I said, there's more money in breaking rocks. And so I joined full time. I think it was 01, 02 when I started cutting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like, I think it was 19, 20 when I started full time.
So 10 years.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you came here in 2012.
Yeah, and that was
Yeah.
that was probably one of the biggest factors, right? So Adnan spent all these years, working under my dad, learning the business, learning the trade and everything else, and it was time he wanted to start his own. And coming to Kentucky was the perfect place to do it, the perfect market.
And then you weren't
everything
competing with her
else.
dad.
Absolutely.
No, I was just, every young man in their 20s wanting to prove and do their own thing. And I was like, I want to start my own company.
So I didn't realize you had owned multiple houses by the time you left Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
But the story about the market crashing and you being underwater, selling your house, tell that.
Yeah.
Oh
You wanna tell
gosh,
that?
yeah, like when that was our 4th property, and we had made a lot of money on every house that we had bought and sold before then. But that last one, and it was that time like these bigger cities got hit, and 2008.
And Chicago still hasn't recovered.
Chicago still, the real estate sucks really. But so basically, when we were getting ready to go, we were trying to sell it, we couldn't sell it. So we put a renter in there for the first year. And that's just a headache trying to do that kind of stuff from out of state.
So we got married in 07, summer of 07, and that big crash was in fall of 07. And we had just bought that house.
Fall of 08.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry. Official 08, you're right. But we saw it in the construction industry that fall of 07.
As well.
Yeah.
For
Right.
us, that's,
Got it.
we saw it on our end. But I do remember that summer when we went on our honeymoon and all the contracts we had landed before I left, talking in the office with Glenn and her dad. And it was like a great year, nothing can go wrong. And we bought our house in 06. So the year before we got married, this big house, and we bought it like at the top of the market. And so anyway, we we're in this house, and we get hit, and we already put money into fixing it up, finishing the basement, flooring, all this other stuff, and the market had just things slowed down up there, and it was rough, and for about 3-4 years we struggled with it, making payments, construction slowed down, everything else, but we worked through it. And then 2012 came, and we've already been in there 6 years, and we still had to bring like $40,000 closing to sell it.
Yeah, but it worked out just fine. I mean, we made so much money on our prior property, so it was really good. But I mean,
I'm still angry for it, by the way. I know it worked out, but I'm still angry about it.
I mean,
So I think a lot of people then were just walking away and just letting the banks have their homes when they were that far underwater.
Right.
and most people would have, instead of taking $40,000, every penny we had in savings
Which was
at that
more,
time.
which was more money in 2008 than it is now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and a lot of people advised us. They're like, you know what, just walk away.
Right.
And
Turn it in. And
no.
we just felt awful about it. We're like, no. And then, credit to Cindy. She's like, I'm not doing it. She's like, I can't, she's like, I can't sleep knowing we did that. And because we could afford it. We were making payments on that. We could afford it, but, everybody around us would just walk away from it.
Well, to me, like I was raised to, where it's if you agree to something, if you put your name, you signed to something, that's your agreement. You got to follow through at all costs, right? So, okay, sometimes it sucks, but it's important to follow through at all costs.
This is that black and white we talked about.
Yes.
She's very black and white. She said, I agreed to this. I agreed to 30 years mortgage. We're going to pay it off.
I think that's also like Eastern Kentucky country people.
And that came from my dad.
Yeah.
He was great about it too.
Definitely, like a handshake meant everything. Your name meant everything, right?
Well,
so if
because
you go
back then community was everything.
Yeah.
Right? Like I think I don't know if I told you this story or not, but the farmhouse my mother was raised in was built 100 years before it burned down in 1968. And there wasn't indoor plumbing. They had an outhouse in the backyard. It wasn't insulated. And the house burned down in 68. And I think it was the chief of police stood at the end of the road where the turnoff was to the road to our farm with the bucket and collected money from people that were driving by. And I think the community got together to build them the new house that was the one that I spent a lot of my childhood in that's still there. But I think it's like when the government's not coming to save you, then your relationships with the people around you are really that much more important, and integrity is that much more important, because you may need help one day or they may need help one day, and it's important for people to have integrity and be there for each other, because if you can't be trusted that your word is your bond, like that's the whole basis for any base contract or any relationship, right?
Absolutely.
And I don't know, I'm really glad I grew up that way. But anyway, that's sort of a digression.
And
but
I am too. And that's, and I want my kids to really hold on to that too, right? Like, it was an agreement we made, and like Adnan said, it's not like we were in a position to where we couldn't do it and we were just completely screwed. We were in the position where that was all our savings. That's what we had saved up. We could do it. Now it sucked, right? And a lot of people would take the easy way out, instead of.
And, back then, everybody was sort of justified to say, well, everybody else is doing it. We're going to do it too. Yeah. And then we felt like, well, we got a shitty deal, but we agreed to this. We agreed to the price. We agreed to the terms. And yeah, we made a mistake, or the market went underwater.
And the
but
right
we
thing
still
to
have
do
to pay
was to sell it, and we ended up taking a loss and just moving on from it. And my credit means everything to me, so thank God that we did that, because I've always been able. I take a lot of pride in keeping my credit nice, and that was like a big thing for me. I wasn't going to trash my credit. But when we got out of that house, the day that I transferred, it was like 38,800 or something. And the day that I transferred that is the day that we found our big farm that we bought in Kentucky. So I literally transferred that money, and within a few hours stumbled across the foreclosure that we ended up buying, which was one of the best deals we ever made and whatnot. And if I had handled that any differently with the house in Chicago, we never would have been able to buy it.
And your life would be totally different. The whole story would be different.
It would change everything. So that's why it's just
and that
important.
would have been the spiral that you walk away from one deal, you make one unethical deal, and then it's the next one and the next one, and we always felt like if we take the high road and do things the right way, it'll come back.
There's a lot of
good
people.
Karma, good energy.
There's a lot of good people that could they were not in the position to be able to do things that we
No,
could at that
yeah,
time. And I
yeah.
definitely don't want it to come. I don't want
And
to come
again,
off
I'm not-
judging. You know,
Yeah,
for
I'm not.
people who
I'm
did
not
other
saying
things. But
there were, people lost jobs, houses. There was some situations. There was nothing.
There was
you
a
can
lot
do.
of bad
and,
situations.
people get hurt and lose jobs and can't make mortgage payments. Yeah, I get that. But I'm saying for
Totally.
us, it was, we could pay it. We could, get through it, and we're like, well, we agreed to it.
we
so
didn't
let's
take the
pay
easy
it.
way out.
It's one thing to not do it because you can't. It's another thing to not do
Right.
it because
Right, and
you
then
don't want to.
we
Exactly.
lived with her parents for
Exactly.
about a year because we still had that mortgage payment we're making. We're trying to sell it, and we moved in with the in-laws. So the money we were making, we were putting it
Stashing
on the
away.
mortgage. Yeah, saving and paying the mortgage.
Yep.
So
It worked out. It worked out real well.
I need to take a quick
go ahead.
break.
But that's okay.
Can we go we're gonna put through a caller right now? And call number 96.
We can, but not this one. Okay. So, paid $38,000 at closing to sell your Chicago house when you're moving here.
Yeah, we were here already for a while trying to.
Yeah, we
work
lived
all
down
that
here
out.
with her in-laws.
My parents
when
have
we moved.
had a home here. Was kind of like.
Oh,
their
that's
second
right.
home.
That's right. Because you rented it for a little bit before you actually
Right.
sold it,
Yeah,
and
because
you
we
stayed
couldn't
with her
sell
parents.
it, so we rented it. I think at a loss or below market, or we always had a hard time.
We
Okay.
were just trying to get through everything. So, the reason we moved here was for him to be able to start his company. So, I sold my salon at the time because I had that for, almost 10 years. Sold the salon because we had a little baby. Our son was about a year old, and I was done working around the clock. So, this was a great thing for us was to make the move down here. Cheaper cost of living here, everything. He could focus on opening up his business, and I could be with our baby full time, which is what I
So
really
you
wanted.
just had the one then?
We just had the one, and he was a year old. And every time I left for work that first year, I cried. Every time I struggled so hard because I was gone for hours. Much different than what I do today. My schedule's much
That
more
was an
flexible
adjustment
now.
for us because we just worked, around the clock before kids, and then we had our first, and I think she only took 4 weeks or 5 weeks off, for maternity leave, and she was right back to work,
at it.
and then it was an adjustment. We're like, man, I said, we got to stay home with the kid. We
And
can't
I
be working 70, 80
hated
hours.
leaving him. I hated leaving him. And
yeah,
my
so-
first time, brand new mom. I love my babies. I love all my babies.
And
but
that was our initial option was, if she's going to stay home, we got to make
downsize
some
our life.
changes,
too.
downsize, and that's,
Or reduce your cost of living to maintain
Right.
your lifestyle.
which was the house, which was, move out of state. Chicago, as expensive as it was.
Very, yeah.
So,
Yeah, so that was the big jump as to, okay, so I can sell the salon. That gives us a good cushion of money for us to take the leap, get to Kentucky. My parents had a home here. We'll stay here while we get our house in Chicago sold, and then he can get his business kind of started and off the ground, and we'll kind of transition that way. And that's what we did. The money that I made selling the salon, we lived off of for the first 2 years, which was great. So we were very frugal about everything. And then he just grinded, to start up his company. And then I was home with the baby full time, and I helped him run the office. So I did all the paperwork and things in the background for him because he was just on a truck working 20 hours a day, literally. So we changed everything because we knew that if we kept going the way that we wanted, we weren't going to be able to ultimately have the things that we wanted, which I didn't want to have to work as much. I wanted to be with the baby, and he loved that idea. He supported mom being the one home with the baby too. He's always been very supportive of what I want. So this was like our way to get it all done. He was always itching to do his own thing, his own business, and we loved Kentucky because we visited all the time here, and he would visit with us with the family. So he had been to Kentucky so many times, and he loved it.
actually, I came down one time, and I said I want to live here.
Yeah, the first
people
time.
were super friendly. I'm like,
Yeah, Kentucky's an
I go to
amazing
gas
place.
stations to, get a drink, and people want to talk and hang out. Not like Chicago where everybody's just like move and it's yelling,
Angry, yeah.
bothering somebody. And I remember this one guy at a gas station. He's like, I know she's a Yankee. She's from up north, but you're
'Cause
like
my
from
accent.
around here, you know. Thanks, man. You know.
His
But-
accent was all over the place. Nobody could tell where he was from. But me, I had a strong northern accent 10 years ago, especially.
But I specifically remember
Yeah.
that guy. And I got
Yeah.
back in the car. And I'm like, you know, I said, I want to raise my kids here. People are so friendly. That's why
Yeah.
I told her. And,
Yeah.
and we didn't have a kid then. But, you know, we started visiting and I started liking it more and more. And every time we came down here, the people were even, you know, better and better. You'd meet, you know, run into strangers. People you didn't even know. You know, they couldn't even say my
Definitely.
name, but you talked to them for an hour, you know.
Yeah.
Everything for us was better here. For us, you know. Quality of life. Everything slowed down a bit. Since we moved here, and it's been over 10 years now, I still don't quite feel like I'm off of vacation. Like the whole lifestyle change coming here was like almost like we permanently are on vacation in so many ways, even though we work a lot and we're doing so much. But it's so positive, and life is slower here than it was there. And it's a different vibe. It's a different energy. And
It's not a rat race here.
it's not a rat race. No. And best decision, we talk about this a lot. Best decision
I think
we ever
partly
made.
because you had acreage in Cynthiana
Well,
probably helped
Wilmore.
you feel it.
Wilmore. Yeah.
Right.
Well, but we didn't have that though for the first few years. That having that property was about a year and a half
Because we had
in.
Clark Court. Didn't we have Clark Court for a year?
It was a year and a half in because we stayed
Yeah.
at my parents' house for 9 months while we were getting all that sorted out. And then we bought a cute little house in Wilmore for 9 months. And then we had moved on to that farm. So it was about 18 months before we did that.
So was the first property you worked with Jeff on that you told me that story?
The farm was. Yeah.
The
The
farm was.
yeah.
So bought the farm. That's Pacer. You referred to it.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
So and that was with Jeff.
It was.
How'd you get connected with him? And tell me the story of like your underwater sale in Chicago and how that's connected.
Well, it's kind of funny because we had literally just finalized that sale with that Chicago sale that day. And I came across that property on Pacer, and it was $500,000. I mean, it was a 30-acre farm in foreclosure, 6,000 square
Ran
foot
into it
house.
by accident. You know, I was out work and she called me about this and I said,
Total
no,
accident.
It's too much money. And we just spent $40,000 paying the old house off.
But it was an opportunity. I mean, and I love things that, like the deal that I was just negotiating right now. I love making ugly things pretty. I can see the potential. I'm one of those people who can walk in. I'm like, I know what this is going to be like by the time we're done. So with that, yeah, and he's like, there's no way. And he's so focused on work at this point and whatnot. So he's in that
I
world.
wasn't very involved. I was just, you know, the only reason we were looking at other properties was I needed a shop to keep my equipment and trucks. We're starting to grow the business.
I was supposed to be looking at shops or warehouses or things for his business. And this
Or a house with a little farm, like, you know,
Yeah.
1 acre.
This
Not 30.
property, like, we had so much space. We had extra garages and everything else. And I'm like, look, for what we're already paying for where we're living right now, and then what we're going to have to pay if we rent something for the business. And I'm like, we're almost right there anyway. I'm like, we get into this property that has so much equity potential. And it did, because we just sold that a couple of months ago for $1.3 million. So it was a great decision. I mean, we did so well on it. But at that point, we didn't have much of a job history or anything to be able to like show to these banks that, hey, we're qualified buyers, right? So I found out who was holding the foreclosure, and it was a local bank. So I walked into the local bank, and it was Jeff's deal. So, who's almost like a friend or family now. We have such a good relationship. But I walked, and that was the first time I talked to him. I walked into that office, and I sat down, and I said to him, I said, all right, let me tell you why you're going to sell me this house. It was the first thing I said to him, and he's like, okay, little lady, you know, why don't you tell me what you got? And I'm like, just this morning or day before, I had transferred almost $40,000 to close out my house in Kentucky or in Chicago because we were underwater with the crash. And I said, and I still honored my agreement with the bank And I paid $40,000 when everybody around me was telling me to foreclose on it, and got out of that property. And that's why I'm here today, because I need a new property, and I'm your girl. I'm always going to make my payments. You don't ever have to worry about me. And he sat there and he's like, you know what? He's like, I like you. And it just all went from there. And then we just started talking, and he just started running numbers with me. And then it turns out it was a lot more affordable than we even thought, because it was zoned agricultural. So the property taxes were so cheap in consideration, because it was a lower tax rate than I even thought. So it really dropped our monthly payment. So it was a lot more affordable.
Did you go USDA on it?
No, we didn't, but we did like an in-house loan like that. But my property taxes were just so low, so it was like a big drop in payment. And then, I mean, I basically was able to get everything worked out and figured out on the financing side. And within a few weeks, I was talking to him on the phone. I'm like, oh, you know, he was working. He was out of state, like around the clock. And I'm like, he was on his way home. I'm like, oh, don't forget, like, you live on Pacer now. Like, go to that house. He didn't even know that it was done and final.
Just like the window, I put my foot down. I said, we're not spending $500,000 on this farm. I said, what are you going to do with 30 acres? I said, you know, we don't know anything about land and farmers. I said, I'm busy. I'm never home. I said, what are you going to do? Like, be a farmer? Are you going to take care of 30 acres? And she looked at me. She says to me, she's like, you don't want to own 30 acres of America? What's wrong with that?
It's America.
And I, you know, for once I was, you know, speechless. I'm like, damn, you're right. I do want to own 30 acres of America. So, and I remember telling her, I was like, look, I said, well, go buy it. I said, but no bank's going to give you a loan, because I just, you know, started a business. I had no income, I couldn't even buy a used van at that point. And, you know, just had no credit. My credit was bad, and, you know, because everything was in loans starting a business. And I said, no bank's going to give her $500,000. That's insane. And then she went into the office, comes out, and, yeah, I convinced and there were like 4 other offers, and she's like, yeah, I convinced the banker to give us a loan, you know. I said, no. It's like, yeah, you're living here. And I was like, no. And she got movers, she got friends, she moved everything, and literally all I had to do was show up.
Got it done.
So,
I had to get done.
like a boss. And she's like, yeah, you're living here. And I was like,
oh, and we had just bought that previous house 9 months ago, and I'm not a licensed realtor, or, you know, at that time. I had nothing to do with the real estate world at that time.
We didn't even have a working realtor. She saw a sign. She went to the bank.
I did this all myself. But, like, at that time, we had bought that other little house that we were living in, and it was like 9 months. He's like, we're going to lose money when we sell that house. I'm like, I'll sell it myself. We'll do it by owner. I'll do everything myself. I can do it. And I'm like, we won't lose nothing. And we didn't. I hosted my own open houses, and I had an offer. And
I'm going to edit this part out.
I know. For that.
She's advertising for the FISBOs.
I'm not, though, because this is also why I am such a killer agent, is because I have what it takes. Like, I have it.
I'm going to edit this part out, too.
Bleep that part out. Oh, this is her cussing. Bleep.
But, I mean, that kind of was a little bit of, I'm like, man, I'm good at this stuff. I really need to do this stuff.
She's not just good at real estate. Before that, she did a lot of, again, I was working a lot. So a lot of the trucks and equipment that was bought, she negotiated, finance, did all that for the company. And, she'd be out in the parking lot breastfeeding the baby and negotiating a new pickup truck, you know, and get that pickup truck delivered, and they delivered it at home, and she got the deals and everything.
I was at one closing with the baby at the table with the attorneys, everyone around me breastfeeding as I'm signing.
Yep, I
the baby
remember
had
that
to
too.
eat. I'm like, I just throw something over. I'm like, you know.
So she, you know, deals got to get done. There's no sick days or days off, and then
3 babies, you know.
But she's a hell of a negotiator. She's
and just stuff has to get done. I'm not dramatic about it. If it needs to get done, I just get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're a team player.
Definitely. Yeah.
So we bought 30 acres of America.
So I have to share something with you. So I'm kind of tenderhearted, like I cry at the drop of a hat, and I'm more that way as as an adult, more so than I was when I was a kid, just because I think I'm sentimental about things. But when I was a kid, coming to Kentucky basketball game, driving 2 hours, coming to Lexington, like it may as well have been Disney World to me.
Sure.
It was a town of 2,000 people, give or take. That's what the sign on 32 said. And Lexington was the big city, right? So after my freshman year in college and I was living in the dorms, I got a job at like the biggest corporate law firm here in town as a runner. I knew somebody who knew somebody. And that was in the Central Bank building there on Vine. So you know the building I'm talking about, 300 West Vine.
Yeah, I've cut concrete there.
There too?
Everywhere.
I get around, not to brag.
So that office had the 11th and 12th floors of that building. And I was usually the first person in the office because I had to like set everything up for the meetings that day and everything. And like every third or fourth Saturday, I would have to work Saturdays. And a lot of times I was the only person in the office the whole Saturday. It was just like the office had to be up and running just in case any of the attorneys wanted to come in and do anything. And I remember one particular weekend being there by myself and in the conference room on the 11th floor, and there was snow everywhere. And I'd slept for like 4 hours. I mean, I was a sophomore in college, right? And I remember just sitting there like by myself in that building, looking out the window at the snow over the city, and it was like, kind of cried a little bit because it was like, I'm actually here. I'm actually really a part of this place. You know, watching basketball games was like a holiday for our family when I was a kid, and Lexington and Rupp Arena was Disney World. And just in like a couple of years, I had a job. I was in that building by myself. So I sort of take that for granted a lot of times now, but I also try to keep that perspective of like doing real estate here in Lexington. I love Kentucky, and Lexington to me is Kentucky's downtown.
Yeah.
This is the definition of like when people think of Kentucky, that they think of Fayette County.
Yeah.
And it's still cool to me that I get to help people come from where I'm from and own property here. That really is a lot of what my job is, to be honest with you.
And
like,
own America.
and
right?
to own America.
And own America.
So
Not
so
just
the
America.
analogy is own
Kentucky.
own
America.
Fayette County, own Kentucky, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So you know, I'm from Kentucky, but I'm just saying I can sort of actually relate to that a little bit in that way.
Absolutely.
And out of all the places we bought real estate and, you know, have done real estate deals, Kentucky's probably my favorite. I honest to God, I love going to these showings and meetings, and you go on the back roads and you're seeing
It's
like
beautiful.
the beautiful farms, the green.
Yeah.
Even like the worst house you can imagine in Kentucky, to me, is 100 times better than anything up in Chicago, Illinois, outside of Kentucky. Because, I mean, you know, I have a lot of customers, they're like, hey, you know, this job's like 2 hours away. You sure you want to come out and do it? I'm like, yeah, I love the back roads driving, seeing the countryside, seeing the farms. I mean, it's just, to me, it's peaceful.
You have a sense of place.
Yeah, and
You
it's
have a
peaceful.
connection.
It's calming, and you're right. It's connection. You connect, and you see people. You see people waving. You see people working, and you know it's not just a concrete jungle. It's not a rat race where you're stuck on a highway with 6 lanes of highway traffic. You know,
And it's absolutely beautiful here.
it really is.
Yeah.
It is. Even the rundown properties, it's still beautiful. Honest to God,
And I think
because the
that's what it
property we
is.
bought, we took like 3 dumpsters worth of trash, but we saw the beauty of it, the 30 acres. So
I showed when you listed that, it was like the week after I was at your house that day. And I showed my wife, I was like, look at this listing Cynthia just put up. And she's like, whoa. And she was like, what is that? And I told her it was your listing. She was like, why would you ever move from there?
Isn't that funny? I've gotten that so
moved
many
by-
times.
moved by
Why would
accident.
you ever sell that?
we moved by accident. That wasn't our intention.
So as much
We
as
did that by mistake.
as much as I loved that place and it was beautiful, it almost like served its purpose.
I get it.
And was done, right? Like, it was a great investment. You know, we made a lot of money from that place. Had our other 2 daughters born, you know, brought them home to that place. But 30 acres is so overwhelming. Like, we almost needed full-time staff to really take care of that property. And then a lot of people don't quite understand that property was a working farm. It was him with his business being ran off that property a lot of times, like, and a lot of stuff being stored there. I had no privacy. It wasn't home. It was a working farm. We grew hemp.
So we had people come and, you know, cultivate the hemp, you know, store all that. Then we had the construction contractors, my guys with equipment and, you know,
Always
trailers. our
7 days a
shop
week.
and equipment warehouse was, so it was always busy working 7 days a week. So it was never really
Home.
private. And on top, it was 30 acres to maintain and mow and clean. And, that's a full-time job on its own.
It was for me. We have a story that like we talk about to ourselves. Like, he had one of his employees showed up one night and parked back by the back of the house and was going to clean his truck out at 9:00. I was in the bathtub next to where this guy was parked. And, farmhouse, big windows, like, you're in the middle of nowhere. I don't need blinds.
Right.
But this guy decides he's going to park on that side and clean his van and the windows come right to the edge of my bathtub.
Which is cool at any other time.
Which is cool.
It really is. It's 30 acres,
Yeah.
so there's nobody
Yeah,
around. Wide
right.
open windows, you overlook
I
everything.
sat-
But he showed up to load some stuff out of the garage, and I told him grab it and meet me on the job. And then he's standing there cleaning his truck, and she's in the bathtub, and she had no phone or not. So she sat there. She turned into a prune. Couldn't get out of the bathtub.
I had
'cause
to wait
as soon
till
as
he
you
left.
stand up, there's the guy. So,
I waited like an hour before I got out of that bathtub. But so I love that property, but the house that we're in now, we're a little bit
And-
closser to Lexington. The setup that we
and
have,
we
I
always
truly feel like I
planned
can.
on staying in that house. We were gonna put money to clean up, land, the grass, the overgrowth, and all that. And we're gonna fix it up because when we did buy it, it was a lot of trash and it was a foreclosure. So we did still had. I mean, we were. We had to borrow a fridge and we didn't have a stove for you when we first bought that because we just spent all our money paying off the old house. And
Getting into that.
yeah, we
one.
borrowed her mom's garage fridge for a year, and then we grilled a lot and ordered a lot because we didn't have a stove. So we never really fully fixed it and updated it. I mean, we made it nice when we sold it, but and we wanted to fix it up, do an addition, and we started looking at properties around us to get inspired, and that's the only reason we bought the new house and sold that one.
Yeah. We went to this house that we're in now. We went to go look at because it just was so gorgeous from
And
the
that was one of
pictures
the
and
top
everything.
builders in Kentucky that built that house.
Yeah, for himself.
Was it Paget? Who was the builder?
Marion
Jones.
Jones,
Yeah.
Bluegrass Fine Homes.
Yeah. So he built that house for himself, and that was his forever home. And it's just over the top. He would bring his.
The boat was too big, though.
The boat was too big. But that's
yeah.
a good problem to have.
Yes.
But, I mean, that house he built, so custom, so beautiful. And we
Unbelievable.
went there, we're like, let's get some ideas of how we want our house to look, because this looks great. It's here in Nicholasville. And we got there, and she did the numbers like she did with the last one. She's like, we can afford it. So I'm like, no. I said, we don't want to move. It's like, no, we can afford it. I like this. And she's like, I don't want to live through construction. This is all done here. She's like, we can just move
And the
in.
location was better than where our farm was.
Yeah, we're 10 minutes closer to Lexington.
Closer for the kids, for school, closer for us for work, closer for everything. And in the meantime, we had already bought industrial land and moved our business off the property. So the business was already kind of set up and whatnot. And it just kind of worked out. That house kind of fell into our lap. It was an estate sale. And we got into that at a really good deal again. But that's the house that I want to have my grandchildren come visit us in. I'm never moving again. I do love it. Everything about that house just gives me peace, no anxiety. Like the farm was just like a constant list of things that needed to be done that would never get done. Here, I just come, it's home. It's home. The kids have so much space. It's set up perfectly for our family. And this was more of a decision of, this was like another like quality of life decision. As beautiful as the farm was,
And we still own 5 acres of America for the
yeah,
acre.
we're 5 acres, which to a lot of people are like, I can't believe you own that much. And we're like, wow, we downsized from 30.
I think I grew up on 120.
My parents have 100. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm used to that
When
too.
you tell
but
people up in Chicago you own 30, it's like 3,000. You're like,
yes.
whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Chicago, you see your neighbor's living room from your living room. Like it's 5 feet in between,
But I'm genuinely happy with where we
No,
are
it's
at.
a great
And I'm very happy with where we're at.
It's a great place.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love it.
Yeah.
But a lot of people ask me, why would you move? And I'm like, well, I mean, from the outside looking in, you can look at that and think that that's great. But, for us, as busy as our life was, the last thing you wanted to do was pull down your driveway at home after you've been busy and you got the kids and looking at the millions of, projects and things that need to be done. And a farm is a full-time job.
I actually didn't mean that critically It was more like
So I've gotten it
that
many times.
you did such a good job with the house.
Thank you.
From what it was is really all I meant.
I wish you could. Did you ever go back and see the old listing?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you actually got to see what it was. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
so then he knows.
we did quite a bit of work to it, you know,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
it was, again, when we bought it as a foreclosure, we always figured we'd update and do all that, but we didn't do anything until we sold it.
Well,
We
the
put
like
quite a bit of money in.
we did. We painted the whole house
Right,
and everything else. But like
we didn't do new countertops. We didn't new.
we prepped it like, you know, because that's what we do. We flip, we renovate, we rehab homes. So when we knew we were going to take it to market, then it was, all right, we need to do what everybody else wants. And we painted the exterior. We zhazhed the whole place up and made it.
The new owners are awesome. They're bringing
Yeah.
horses, or the daughter's bringing horses, and
They already have, yeah.
yeah, they love it. They still text us, ask us questions about the property, so they're great people.
Yeah, retired Major League Baseball player bought it from us.
Can you say who that is?
I mean, can I?
I don't know.
I don't know if I'm
What was his
supposed to.
name? Can you?
You already have to edit so much stuff
Yeah,
out.
okay.
And I mean, where we live now, we live next door to a Major League Baseball player. I don't know what it is with.
My in-laws, my wife's parents live next to a Major League Baseball player too. It's-
What is that?
Yeah, I
like,
don't
why
know.
is it so big here in
Maybe there's a
Kentucky?
lot of them.
I don't think there's that many like Major League Baseball players
I worked
out there.
with one,
Who?
Braden. He used to play for the.
Oh, really?
Is it who's in Philadelphia? The Reds? Is it the Reds?
Phillies. Are you serious?
Yeah. Yeah, he's a big old guy. I used to play for him.
Nice.
Yeah,
I don't know.
nice guy. I don't know anything about baseball, so.
So we go to closing with this Major League Baseball player, right?
I'm Pacer.
For Pacer, yeah. And I sit down next to him and I look over him at one point. I'm like, hey, I didn't want to come to closing and like be bragging to you or like, you know, throwing stuff your way and all that. But just want to let you know I'm like the all-star pitcher of my little league team. And I was number one. I got trophies to prove it. So just saying, I'm not impressed by you.
She put him in his place.
It was so funny. He was laughing. He enjoyed it.
That is a nice
But
guy.
no, very nice people. Very, very nice people that bought the place. So that's good.
So you glossed over it a little bit coming here and building your concrete cutting business.
Yeah.
There's
But-
nothing to gloss over. 20 to 22 hours of every single day spent for the first at least 4 years he spent on job sites, sleeping in between. Like, I never saw him. Nobody
Well,
ever saw him.
there's a great story, and she probably tells us better. I was never home. I just worked a lot, and she
Around the
ran all
clock.
the finance like she still does, and just did a lot of work, put in a lot of hours and all that. But one day I remember I'd worked 9 days, and I got home and got in a truck and went to a job, and I fell asleep and crashed. And the tow truck came and picked me up and brings me back, and she's like, "What happened?" I was like, "Oh, I fell asleep." She's like, "Were you on your phone?" I was like, "No," I said, "I fell asleep." She's like, "Wait, okay." She's like, "Go get arrested." I said, "No." I was like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm getting in the other truck. I'm going back to work." So I got in the other truck. The tow truck took the other one in, got in another truck, took the tools, and took the same route, went back to work. I
Went
called
right
my
back to work.
customer, Ben. I said, "Hey," I said, "I'm going to be 2 hours late." He's like, "What happened?" I was like, "Anton accident." Like, "And you're coming back?" I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "I got to get it done."
And, like, there was nothing I was going to be able to do to, like, stop him. Like, he's a grown man. I'm not going to be able to say, no, you have to go to bed.
Nah, she's
like,
she's pretty good about it. Like she always fusses at me with things, and
that's why you go to bed at 8:30 now. You're trying to make up for all those years.
yeah,
I'm telling you,
seriously.
I mean,
But, like,
I
as
used to
his-
sleep during lunchtime, like 30
Where does it
minutes.
come from?
my dad do. I mean, this,
Probably your dad, but I think as in a fear of failure, fear of disappointment, fear of not, if you
Pushing
say I'm
yourself
gonna
to
do
the max.
something on Tuesday, if I say, hey, I'm gonna come here fix your window, next Monday, I'll be here next Monday fixing your window.
Does that go back to your childhood?
Maybe, but we've always been people like that. If we say we're gonna do something, we'll do it. There's really no excuses. Even I've worked through rainstorms, and we had a blizzard in Chicago. We had like 22 inches, and we still went to work. It was never, hey, I can't come on Monday. I'm sick. You work through being sick. I remember getting a surgery done on a Friday, and they cut me open. I was back to work Monday. I had 2 days to recover.
yeah, and like as your wife, and a lot of people would say, oh, how do you let him do that? Or I would get these comments a lot, like, why would you let him go and this and that. I'm like, he's a grown man. I'm not going to be able to stop him, and he's going to go. I'm like, but I would do little things like That day that, he comes back and he's fallen asleep, I'd stay on the phone with him the whole time. I would stay on the phone with him for hours when he drove. For
you
a
were
couple
great.
years, when I knew he was tired, I would just get on the phone and I would hear him where he's almost not paying attention. And I would have to strike something up. I have to find stuff to talk about. I have to do whatever just to keep him engaged with me so he does not fall asleep. We did this for years.
That was what I thought of. I've lost 2 people that I love who fell asleep driving.
It's a big thing. It's a really
honestly,
big thing.
I would not tell people, and it's just it's the craziest thing because you feel just fine driving, and the next thing you know, you fall asleep.
Everybody's limits are different too.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody can do somebody is okay and can function on 3-4 hours of sleep. Somebody else can't function on 6. Everybody's bodies are different. You have to know your limits.
It's very dangerous. And that accident I had, the cop said if I had gone an extra 10 feet, the barrier stopped me. He said if I had gone an extra 10 feet, I probably wouldn't have survived. So.
Yeah.
And it's very scary. It was dangerous, but
Kentucky roads are not gracious at all.
Yeah, right.
They're not.
no. And I've had but again, it was just I drove myself. I pushed myself too hard, and I do remember I worked at this old retirement home one time, and we just hit some real thick concrete. It was like 2 foot thick, and their sewers collapsed, and there's no running water or plumbing, and it's a whole retirement home. All the people are there, so we're having a jackhammer and cut, and this one old lady, because we had to go through right past her doorway, I felt bad at jackhammer noises around the clock, and it was an emergency, and she goes to me, she's like, what kind of drugs do you guys take to get through the day? Like this sweet old woman. I said, nothing. She's like, I bet you guys drink on break. I'm like, nah. I said, they won't let us. But she was sweet. I said, nah. I said, she's like, you guys do this all day? She's like, I said, yeah. I said, what else you got to do? I said, you got to get through it. So, but then just, it's one of those things. Just her dad was a hard worker. He was a huge inspiration. My old man too. Like it was, he's 62, 63 now, and he works 7 days a week. He never has a day off. When he does have a day off, he complains how he has a day off.
Yeah, this is by choice. He feels better when he's working and being productive.
He doesn't need the money, and he doesn't need to work. And I've offered him. I said, why don't you just move to Kentucky? I said, I'll buy you a house. I said, you got enough in retirement? I'm like, I'm sure you got money in your mattresses and all that saved up. And now I'm gonna be bored, and I'm gonna drive you insane. I'm like, well, that is true. So, but it's just, if he's got a day off or a slow day, or he's not working, he's complaining. He's miserable.
Well, I've seen so many people, it seems like they retire and they have nothing to do, and their health starts to deteriorate.
That's exactly what I told him. That's his father.
Right?
Yep.
It's like an object in motion tends to stay in motion.
Yeah.
Right?
It's 100% his dad. I said, that's the worst thing your dad could do. Like, he needs to, he loves his job. He loves his setup. I'm like, it's probably the healthiest thing for him because being productive, for a lot of men especially.
Yeah, men need that. We're like, working horses or dogs. We have to be ran. We have to work. We have to get that anxiety, that depression out of us physically. We don't sit there talk about our feelings. We just go beat things or break concrete, and we feel better.
I mean,
That's
feel
my
like,
therapy.
I feel like everybody, maybe it's not everybody, but I know I do. When I'm productive, I am a lot more content.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Yes, I need to be productive. Like my dad used to always say, you have to earn your downtime. And in order to earn your downtime, you need to be productive, right? So in order to be able to lay on the couch and not feel horribly guilty about it, be productive during the day and earn that downtime, then when you do, it just feels so much sweeter.
I still do, to be honest with you. There's never a time where I'm on the couch and I'm like, this is fine. I can't relax.
Yeah.
If I sit on the couch within 2 minutes, I'm out. I'm sleeping. But it's everybody's so different. Everybody is so different. But my dad used to always say nothing ever became bad out of working and being productive. So
it's true.
I think for us, it was just a lot of years of staying focused in that.
Did you feel like coming here and not having the network? Sounds like you worked some pretty big jobs here over the years. Did you feel like not having a network here, it was difficult for you to get going?
The most frustrating part was I didn't know anyone or anything. I didn't know any name of construction companies, And
you had to find subs?
But just find people, find anyone or anything. So what I did was I opened up maps. I didn't even know what New Circle was. I had no clue how to get it. I called Tate's Creek, Taters Creek.
He thought it was Taters Creek.
It took me a little while. I thought it was Taters
That's how he read it. He
God's
thought it was
honest truth,
Taters
and
Creek.
my dyslexia kicked in. But I didn't know anyone. But I was, and I still am persistent. I'm still, it's one of those things. Hey, let me do this job for you. Hey, let me do this and this for you. And then people would sometimes appreciate the, consistency and the persistency. But then a lot of times also get annoyed. But they remembered me. They remembered, hey, this guy's been coming around begging for work. Let's try him out. And it just took 1 or 2 jobs to do for somebody, and they were beyond happy. And then I had him right off the bat, and I've been very fortunate. I just got along with a lot of people. I remember Mike Adams. I met him on a job and ran into him in a pickup truck. He's just parked in the parking lot and knocking on the window. Hey, roll your window down. I wanna cut your concrete. And that's made friends with him. Me and him just talk and text now, but that's how I met him. And he's got this dry sense of humor, which I thought he wanted to fight me when I first met him. But everybody else, I met Ben with Downhire. I met him at a gas station. We're filling up gas.
I love Ben.
Oh yeah, oh god, yeah. And I'm knocking on his window. Hey Ben, I said, can I cut your concrete? He's like, yeah, we need this and this. I said, okay, let's do it. So we've done and we do a lot of big projects, and we've done a lot of big names around town, and we still do.
Absolutely.
A lot of the Amazon warehouses lately we've done, and FedEx and Toyota. Do a lot of Toyota stuff.
So my dad's business and was a variation of the name, right? Diamond was kind of like the big thing, and my dad's the OG. He started the concrete cutting industry kind of in Chicago, right? So he's the OG, and very well respected, and because of his darn work ethic. I mean, he was a beast. And that's where Adnan kind of took the reins from. But so all of our businesses,
he was
all of our
3 times the worker. I mean, I'm lazy next to him. I mean, and I used to work with him, and good God, I mean, that man could work.
He's a beast.
Oh, and the stories, like, Facebook's been great. I met a few guys he worked with when he first started, before he started his company, and you hear these stories, and you're like, he did what? He did that? And, it's just,
yeah.
He had some crazy stories to tell.
And that was kind of why I saw, like, when he started his company, or our company, we put Diamond in there as like an homage, right? So that was kind of like, my dad kind of started that whole legacy, and so we put Diamond in that name. And then whether we're doing, like, we have a couple of other businesses. When we had hemp, it was Diamond Hemp, and when we had
there's always a diamond somewhere.
If you pay attention, there's everything that we do is diamond, and it basically goes back to that legacy that my dad started, which my dad coming from absolutely nothing and starting something off, and we just, like, we've learned so much from him on that aspect, and he was an amazing father and father-in-law. So,
and see, this goes back to how he started his business and how I started mine, was just given your word. You didn't have anything
your
else.
word
There
is
was
everything.
no contract. There was no hey, let's make sure you're a good vendor and let's look at your background. There was nothing. I moved from Chicago. I had a used van and no money to my name, and I'm like, hey, I said, as a matter of fact, the first job I got, I didn't even have diamonds. I hadn't bought any diamond blades or bits, and I called my supplier and I said, hey, I got this job. I said, can you send these to me? And he's like, well, normally we don't do it with new accounts, but we'll front you for 30 days. Just pay us in 30 days, which that was huge. And just like I said, I've been very blessed and just met a lot of people, and everyone I met just got along with them, did work with them. We just got along, and wasn't always perfect, wasn't easy, but we got it done, and we're still doing it.
That's so awesome.
So yeah.
And Cynthia, you have been, for those years, sort of support organization for him, and stay-at-home mom. You have 5 kids in the house, and you got your real estate license in 2020.
So, funny thing about that real estate license. So, always kind of dabbled in real estate, doing different things. We were, at that point, buying properties, flipping properties, Adnan and I. So, we kind of were doing stuff on the side as well. Like, once he got a little established with the business, then we started buying some properties fixing them up. And that was kind of more of my thing a little bit because he was busy. So I would design these houses and kind of execute them and whatnot. And I was so involved with the selling side of it. I'm like, it's my knack. Like, it's what I'm naturally good at. So that's kind of, so I actually tried 3 times to get my real estate license. So
really?
I signed up 3 times. Every time I signed up.
I think that's like every realtor. I'm kidding.
Yeah, but mine's a little bit different. Every time I signed up, I ended up getting pregnant, right? So it's like,
My fault.
I'm like, so it was just one of those things that like always took like a back burner. And then so I had that. So the very last time that I signed up is when my niece and my nephew ended up coming to live with us. So I didn't get pregnant that 3rd time, but I ended up with 2 more kids. So literally every time I went on that venture there, I ended up with more kids, which is a wonderful thing, and got through it. And I've been licensed actually only 3 years. I just hit 3 years. And that's been a awesome career path for me. I love it. And it goes hand in hand with everything that Adnan and I do.
One thing about Cindy, when she, and this goes back to high school, when she wants to do something, she'll do it. And then when she said she was done owning a salon, didn't want to work anymore, she wanted to focus on the baby. And she had a hard time leaving the baby behind, with sitters and parents and all. And that's why she sold the salon and I started my business so she can focus on the babies. And then once the babies got older, she said, you know what, I want to get back to work. But
on my terms, which in real estate, it could be on my terms.
On Cindy's terms. It's always on Cindy's terms. So she, and she
Duh.
goes,
Cheers.
and she said, it's like, okay, I want to get back to work. The kids are older, they're in kindergarten, preschool.
Everybody's okay.
Yeah, everybody's okay. They're set, and I've done a decent job. And then we started flipping, and again, she ran the flipping crews. She's been always around construction. She's, she comes from a construction background, so she started doing the flips, the remodeling and all that. The only thing really I helped was with get contacts and, labor and all that. But she does all of that. She does the design. She finds the house. So, and the only reason she got her real estate license was, she wanted to be more involved, hands-on with the negotiating, the buying,
for
the
our
selling.
own deals.
Just for our own deals. And once she got into that, she's like, I think I want to be a full-time realtor.
Well, I loved it. So I was doing one. I was when I first got officially licensed, I was doing an open house for one of our new renos that we did, Liberty.
Yeah, I love that house.
And somebody walks in. 2 people that weekend walked in and started talking. They wanted to see other properties, and that was it. And I was just licensed that week, and I'm like, let's go find you something. If this isn't the one for you, I'll help you find something. And within that first week, I wrote 2 contracts. I was just licensed. I'm like, I'm good at this. I can do this.
But there's a great story on that house, that Liberty house we bought, because again, it has to be on Cindy's terms, and we went to the auction on that house.
Master commissioner.
And I don't think we had our license when we bought that. So, we're just, listen, we're going to try this master commission. We're going to check it out what it is. And this house goes into a bidding war. And she's like, I like the house. I'm a bid on it. So, and Cindy wants to win. And she won and got the house with sight unseen. And we got into it. It's probably the, craziest purchase we've ever made. The house was, needed to be fully gutted. And
No. You could stick your arm through the foundation. Gutted is mild.
That is true.
The foundation was crumbling. I could not even go in that house. It was so unsafe.
Yeah.
But we talk about it. We got that house turned around in 6 weeks. We built a new foundation, remodeled the whole thing top to bottom, 6 weeks. He did make it a priority. He was there with crews and everything else. Like, we cranked it out. It's probably the project that we're most proud of in our history because we took something that was, it was condemned. And in 6 weeks, we brought this house to such a level of, beautiful. We drive past it
I'm very proud of that house.
And there's always this huge sense of pride.
Which one is it?
It's this blue house.
I know that house.
That's our house.
Yeah.
Do you know that house?
That's what I was hoping you were going to say. Yeah, I know that house.
Yep.
Love it.
They got the fencing and everything else.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this was an auction
the original
property.
Farmhouse for the whole subdivision.
Correct, yes.
And
we're so proud of that house.
I guess, the lady passed away went into a state, just dilapidated. The mold, there was
Mess.
mold every square inch in that house.
I
mean,
thought the ceiling had carpet because it was fuzzy mold. It was fuzzy mold everywhere.
like
Ugh.
like the mold, even the countertops in the kitchen, like it looked like carpets.
It was
even the
it was
broom
so bad.
had mold on it. The mold was eating everything. It was crazy.
Well, because there was water coming in top to bottom. I mean, we put a new, foundation all the way up to a new roof and everything in between brand new. Like, I mean, as close as you can get to new construction by renovating, right? So, but massively proud. And I think we kind of looked at each other. We're like, well, damn, if we can get through this, then we can do this. Like, sky's the limit.
That was our defining moment to really go into real estate and do more,
and to get
rehab flipping and more
get heavier into it.
Yeah, more residential construction.
And I would say we, from that point on, now Adnan did a great job busting his butt establishing the concrete cutting business for us. That allowed us to be able to do some more investments. So we started doing this real estate stuff on the side. And then it just kind of exploded for us, right? So it's all stepping stones. So we still rehab. I've got another offer on another property right now for a rehab that we're looking to do. And it just spiraled into this real estate world. So that foundation of the concrete cutting company and how hard he worked really kind of gave us the opportunity to start investing and doing other things in real estate. And one thing we're really good about is every time we make money.
Actually, take that back.
What?
It started with her selling her salon to help me start the concrete cutting business.
Well, I mean,
and then the
we're a
concrete
team.
cutting business helped the real estate side. So, but yeah,
It's all been a
imagine
stepping stone.
convincing your wife to sell her salon, sell the house, sell everything, and then pack a U-Haul.
I was fine because I wanted to be with my baby.
And she had to haul a
I was fine.
trailer 6 hours
Oh my
away. I
God.
said, let's move in with your in-laws while I start my business. So it was crazy. And
was
she
crazy.
did. She took a gamble. I mean, that was a big investment.
But I am a team player.
You are.
I will
You
do
are,
my
but
part. I will pitch
yeah,
in.
it wasn't.
And I will
It
do
wasn't
my part.
my business starting. Your real estate and real estate career. It was just you sold your business to start my crazy venture.
It's 23 years of good decisions together. We have a rule. If it's one no in a decision, like one of us says yes, one of us says no, it's an automatic no for us. Because if we both don't feel good about something, it's going to turn out bad. It's not going to work. We've learned this. So we both have to feel really good about something before we do it. And that's been great for us. That really works. If we feel good about it, 100% it's going to be
Took
good.
us a while, at least me, to
That's more you.
because I mean, listen, I have a crazy idea every 2 minutes, and I'd run it by her, and a lot of times she's like, "Look, not today. I don't have the energy for your crazy ideas today."
Sometimes I have to tell him, I'm like, my mental capacity is overloaded. Can we talk about this later? Because I just can't do any more right now. And he's like, okay, babe. Like, he understands.
I'll
we'll talk
put
later.
it to the side. I'll hit you up tomorrow when you had more coffee.
And he does.
but I've gotten better because before I would have, crazy ideas and ventures and things I'd want to do. And she's like, no, that sounds insane. And then I would try it out. And I'd be like,
And
what,
it
that
was
was insane.
insane,
It
and-
was ridiculous.
yeah.
I should back off,
Yeah.
And since I've done that, it's really been a lot better.
It has been.
really
we got to be on the same page because
Well, it's been less stressful, and I feel like we've, made more money, better financial decisions, and it's been a lot less work on me.
we've
so.
made more calculated decisions. So we
I had this crazy idea of starting a concrete cutting company in every big city.
I'm happy you didn't do that. I mean, I know you could have and you would have done it well, but I'm happy you didn't do that because
It's just so much
we've
work.
evolved into investors. So more than a concrete cutter, more than I ever was a hairstylist or different things or whatnot in real estate, we're investors at this point. So our money at this point is giving us a good return by.
You stay busy with real estate contracts.
Oh yeah.
I love it.
I know you do.
I love it. I love it. I'm not sure where my numbers are going to end up for the year, but I know I'll be over 20 million in sales again.
Another record.
Yeah.
I'll
So-
brag for her. She's
So can I underline this whole thing
sure.
a little bit?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I love about this story that you've kind of laid out, and it's like, I think the first good decision that you both made was proactively choosing each other to be your partner,
Agreed.
That
because
should be your number one
so
partner.
I've watched so many relationships fall apart because the foundation wasn't there. That people were together for the wrong reasons, made decisions too quickly, and I'm sure that there probably was the thought that that's what you did when you were teenagers. We're going to get married years from now, and this is when we're going to do it. And are we crazy and all that? But I think the important thing is really, like, you had a crush on her in class, but the reason you decided to make that commitment to each other is because even though you're different personalities and different interests, you have the shared values and the shared foundation, and you knew you could be partners in whatever it was.
And we're awesome partners.
Well, and I think for me as a man, at some point, you're like, I want this woman to be the mother of my children.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even once she gets tired of my crazy ideas or divorces me, it's still going to be, this is the woman I want to raise my children. As a man, I think any man that's wanting to have a family or a spouse, that's what we look for. So that's...
And that puts you, I think that has put you in a position to not let your anxiety rule you with your decision making. Like, a lot of people have a lot of crazy ideas, right? But if you have that foundation relationally where no matter what happens, it's going to be okay, and I've been through a whole lot worse than whatever could happen, then you're willing to take the calculated risks and not act out of fear, and then do the work after you put yourself in those situations. So you're engaged and you're getting that feedback.
Do you know how much easier it is to make a big leap and make a decision, though, when you know that if it doesn't work out, you're not alone in dealing with it?
This is my point.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's like to make the decision is not what gives so many people the anxiety, right? Like, we can make decisions, but to know that if it goes bad or something happens, that you're not dealing with it yourself. You've got somebody dealing with it.
This is where I struggled when I just mentioned, since we started, one says no, it's automatic no. When I was doing crazy hours, being gone all the time, my business decisions, business ideas was, let's expand into another town. Let's add more equipment, guys, trucks and all that. And she was like, it's too fast, too crazy. Let's not. And, every time I went against what she said, it wasn't that she was completely no. It was just it wasn't 100%. It was sloppy. It was poorly executed. And then, I'd have to humble myself and say, you know what, you're right. I should have listened to you. And again, I started valuing her more as a partner, because
instead of just a wife. Yeah.
Yeah, because when you think about 23 years of together, we've done things where hair salons, and we've done things where you start your career, she starts her career, and we're doing two separate things. A lot of times you don't always ask the other person, but I've learned, look, run this by your partner. If that's your number one partner, nobody else, nothing else, whether it's a promotion, whether it's a new job, whatever you're thinking, just run it by your partner, because
be a team.
They have a lot of times they have great input. A lot of times they like when she says, why do you want to open up a business in every big city, like why? I was like, well, I said, it's really just for my ego.
Then don't do it. Yeah. Don't do it.
When you think about it, it's just for the ego to say, hey, you know what? Yeah. I do this many projects. I do this much work. I've done this. And I started sitting down. I'm like, well, it's not really the money, because it would take a lot of money to start it. There is money to be made. But then it's like, at the end of the day, it's just you're doing it for the ego. And it's just, and she explains, like, it's not worth it. And this is also why, we don't do a lot of networking and all that stuff, because, a lot of that stuff people that do is just feels a little bit like, okay, I'm just pushing the ego. I was just trying to do it to feed my ego. Where
yeah.
This is the other thing that I so appreciate about you guys, and it was going to be my next point, was you came here to Kentucky without a network.
None
at all.
I didn't know anybody.
Zero.
you sold your house that you were underwater on, and paid $38,000 to sell your house, and came here, and you have built a successful business. You built a successful real estate career as someone who actually is out chasing contracts. At the same time, you've built an investment portfolio with property. And not only do you have 3 kids, you have 2 kids that you've adopted. And I think your guest house is bigger than this house.
How big is the? Well, it's about 5,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Oh, it is 5,000.
Yeah.
Right. It's much bigger than this house. But it's not.
It's not about.
It's
that
not
anyway.
well, but it's not ego-driven decision making. No one handed it to you.
No.
I wish they would have.
We worked our butts off.
No,
we worked our butts
I
off.
think at the end of the day, it would feel different if they
It
did.
would, and you wouldn't appreciate, and you wouldn't have the background stories. I mean, you know, we just put up our Christmas tree yesterday, and this Christmas tree drives me a little insane because we bought this Christmas tree when we had no money for a Christmas tree
Back in Chicago.
before kids.
The same one.
Same one. So this is, what is this, 15 years old, 16?
I bet it's awesome putting that thing up now.
It's depressing to me because it's falling apart. I'm having a
It's
tie
like the
wire.
Charlie Brown tree at this point. Like, we have to wrap so many new lights because the pre-lit lights, like half of them work. Like,
But it's history.
and we
it's-
love it, and I will not buy a new tree.
It drives
I love
me
the tree.
insane because I'm having to tape it, wire it. You know, when you come to our house, you'll see it. The star is like this blue little snowflake. Half of it's falling apart. It's leaning.
But it's the best tree, and I don't
But
want another tree.
It's memory. And we bought
Yeah.
that tree on sale because I was at Home Depot getting supplies, and they're like, hey, this is a clearance sale. It's $25 or $30. I'm like, well, I'm going to throw it in
Sold.
the back of my truck with all my tools and just shove it in there. And then we bought the little silver decorations and stuff. It was a clearance sale at the dollar store. I think we paid like $2 for that. So
I put that stuff on the tree every year, and I just
Every year
keep
gets
adding
put up,
stuff,
yep.
and I just make it the most colorful tree. And it's a memory tree at
But
this
that's,
point. It's not
It was
catalog
never handed.
perfect
It was
and doesn't
never,
need to be.
swipe the credit card, buy it. It was always a struggle, but we appreciate it. There's a lot of.
And we did it together, so it was one of those
Right.
things. We put it back on. We're like, "Hey, babe, like, look at our
And this
tree."
is partially why we still like, finding houses, properties, businesses, and just like fixing it up and finding the beauty in history instead of just, somebody handed you a brand new house or something. Like, no, I said, we buy it, we fix it up, we make it look the way we want it.
We
and,
like the end
we put
product.
yeah, we do. And that tree is, as much as it drives me crazy, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Because I'd love to buy a new tree and just set it up and where it fits together instead of this one I'm having to wire it with
And
pliers.
it's kind of funny because we pay a lot of money to have the outside of our house professionally lit for Christmas, okay? Which is pretty bougie.
Yeah.
But inside, I have a $25 ghetto, like, very, very scarce Christmas tree because that's just our history and that means so much more to me. But, so.
I totally get it.
We've come a long way, sure, right? Like, we've got the luxuries. I can spend a bunch of money on having the house professionally lit, but like, it's still to us the basis of who we are and where we came from will always be most important. And it's like now, like my kids, all of us, it was all 7 of us decorating that tree last night. So I can't, it's like these things are important to us. They're more important than anything else. But I do appreciate the luxuries we have too. I'm not going to say I don't. But yeah, we definitely don't forget, and those things are super important.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
I feel like we've got the, we.
But I do wish somebody would hand me a nice brand new tree. Like, I'm all open for a handout on a tree.
He's not.
Because you're not the one having to use wires and
You'll be fine.
just like get your toolbox when the branches falls.
Yesterday, and you did.
I did.
And it's just fine. So yeah.
Get the pliers out, the wire. It's holding. All right. Good for another year.
I think the Christmas tree is the perfect place to end it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is great.
Cool.
I want you guys to do this again because I feel like there's so much we didn't get to.
Oh, there's a lot more, but I don't know.
But this is awesome. Thank you all so much.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.